Chapter 986. Looking at the excited Ouyang Tanxiu secretly laughed inwardly. Ouyang had just stepped into the qi refining stage, and he was probably inferior to the first batch of orphans adopted. After sending him to Clam Island, he would train with those children. The scene would definitely be very interesting. It's getting late. I should go back and rest. Don't worry. I still have something to tell you, said Ouyang hurriedly. What is it? Asked Tanxiu. Our Ouyang family recently got a treasure, but none of our family members could figure it out. We even invited a lot of antique experts and famous collectors in the country, but they still couldn't figure it out. That's right, there are also some famous figures from the occult sect. We've also tried to screen it, but they also couldn't figure it out. So can you help us take a look? You can't figure out what it is, yet you dare to call it a treasure? Tanxiu was surprised. I don't know what it is, but it's definitely a treasure, said Ouyang proudly. Do you know what it's made of? Scientific experts said that it's a meteorite from an alien planet, and it's not an ordinary one either. It's rich in energy. Is it a meteorite? Asked Tanxiu. Of course not. Ouyang shook his head. It's an oval vessel with many patterns engraved on it. However, those patterns look like some strange symbols. Unfortunately, even the most famous historian in the country can't understand the content of those symbols. Tanxiu suddenly became curious and asked, Where is it? I can help you take a look. It's in our family's warehouse, said Ouyang. Let's go to my house now. Tanxiu slightly furrowed his brows. He didn't want to go to the Ouyang family. Although Ouyang Lulu was already his woman, he couldn't give Ouyang Lulu a title, or even a wedding. Wouldn't it be too awkward if he were to go there with the identity of the Ouyang family's son-in-law? Tanxiu thought for a moment and said, Brother Lei, I still have some important things to do in the Everlasting Feast Hall, so I have to go back first. Besides, it's late at night now, so it's not good to go to your family. How about this? Take that treasure to the Everlasting Feast Hall. I'll handle some matters first and wait for you there. What do you think? Thinking about it, Ouyang felt that it was indeed inappropriate to let Tanxiu follow him back to his family in the middle of the night. He immediately nodded and said, No problem. I'll take that treasure to the Everlasting Feast Hall later. Countryside Horse Farm. In the European-style villa, Guofugue was sleeping soundly. Beside him were two fair-skinned beautiful girls. They curled up on both sides of him like kittens. Their fair arms and legs were wrapped around his body like octopuses. Ring, ring, ring. The urgent ringtone of the cell phone broke the silence of the darkness. Guofugue was woken up by the ringing of his cell phone. He looked angry and pushed the two girls' thighs and arms away. Then he grabbed the cell phone on the bedside table and looked at the number on the screen. After picking up the call, he cursed. Howsy, are you fucking courting death? Why are you calling me in the middle of the night? Don't you know that I hate it when people disturb my sleep? Boss, something happened. A low and deep voice came from the phone. Guofugue was stunned. He turned to look at the two girls who were sitting up in a daze. He then got up from the bed and walked to the window, asking in a deep voice, What happened? Boss, we've caught Yang Yen and her younger brother, Yang Fei, at the harbor where the Ouyang family's luxury liner is docked. However, Ouyang Yun of the Ouyang family, the general manager of the Paradise Club, suddenly intervened and snatched Yang Yen and Yang Fei. We're here now, but Ouyang Yun seems to have handed over Yang Yen and Yang Fei to someone else. A low and deep voice came from the phone again. The Ouyang family? Ouyang Yen? A chilling light flashed in Guofugue's eyes. He used to be afraid of the Ouyang family, because it was one of the biggest families in Jingmen Island with a very deep heritage. But now he was no longer afraid of it. At most, he was just a bit wary. The Huang family. He relied on the Fukang province's Huang family, because his younger sister married an extraordinary scion of the Huang family last year. Therefore, he and the Huang family could be said to be related by blood. Furthermore, the Huang family was also the reason why he sent people to hunt down Yang Yen. If the Ouyang family wanted to deal with him, the Huang family wouldn't stand idly by. Tell me, where are they now? They've been taken away. I personally led some people to follow them and planned to snatch them along the way. But the other party's anti-detection ability is very strong, and they shook us off after discovering that we were following them. I've now led some people back to the harbor to monitor the Ouyang family's people, and the person who sent them to take Yang Yan and her younger brother away. What a bunch of trash! Guofugui coldly snorted. Just wait for me. I'll be there soon. The voice came from the phone again. Boss, Ouyang Lei just came here and entered the Paradise Club. If you come in person, just in case. Ouyang Lei? Why did he go there? Who were the people who wanted to save the Yang family's siblings? To think that they could make Ouyang Lei personally go there in the middle of the night? Could it be that their background was stronger than the Ouyang family? Guofugui fell into silence and was about to speak when the voice came from the phone again. Boss, Ouyang Lei, and that young man just came out. It seems they're leaving the Paradise Club. What should I do? Should I secretly follow the guy who sent people to take Yang Yan and her younger brother away? Follow them and figure out their background. Understood. Guofugui hung up the phone. His sleepiness had completely disappeared. A pensive look flashed in his eyes as he silently pondered over the key issues in this matter. Zhuqing. He was instructed by the Huang family's patriarch to help him find and pursue the woman. But in the end, Zhuqing quietly left Jingmen Island with Yang Yan's help, causing him to lose face in front of the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu. He hated her. He hated Yang Yan who helped Zhuqing escape, so he sent some people to investigate her whereabouts and background. He also sent a lot of people to hunt her down. It was a pity that the cunning woman had been running away for several days, and had yet to be caught. At 3:30 a.m., Tan Xiu and Mo Ao rushed to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. Most of the people had already left and were now on Nine Dragons Island, so only a dozen core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall were left here. Gu Xiaoxue, on the other hand, had returned a step earlier. I'll stay here. In the parking lot, Tan Xiu issued an order, and then walked toward the seaside. Just as he arrived at the seaside, he saw Gu Xiaoxue sitting cross-legged in the lone boat on the sea under the starlight, cultivating. With a faint smile, Tan Xiu soared and instantly stood on the bow of the lone boat. Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue looked pleasantly surprised upon seeing Tan Xiu. Not bad. You're very hardworking. Tan Xiu nodded. However, Tang Guang and Tang An are a level stronger than you. So you need to work harder to break through to the late stage of Golden Core as soon as possible. I'll try my best, Grandmaster. Gu Xiaoxue nodded. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile, and looked at the sea in front of him. He immediately cast a seal and sent a stream of air into the sea. In just a short while, the sea in front of him split open and Gu Yan'er, clad in white, darted out lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of Tan Xiu. Master. Gu Yan'er was like a young girl as she let out a cheerful laugh and skillfully held Tan Xiu's arm. Let's get ready to leave this place, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I've arranged an array in the sea near Nine Dragons Island that's suitable for the exquisite pagoda. Are you also going to stay in Nine Dragons Island in the future, Master? Asked Gu Yan'er with a smile. I still have a lot of things to do, so I won't be staying here for the time being. Tan Xiu shook his head. However, I still have to go to Nine Dragons Island in the near future to kill all the enemies who dare to covet Nine Dragons Island. Those enemies are just ants in my eyes. Gu Yan'er chuckled. I can easily kill them as long as you tell me who the enemies are, Master. I can't let you do it. Tan Xiu shook his head. The current environment on Earth is too comfortable, which is very unfavorable for us to train talents. So let the others fight the enemies and sharpen themselves on the edge of life and death. As long as they can survive, they will be qualified to leave with us in the future. I'll listen to you, Master, said Gu Yan'er with a smile. Tan Xiu reached out to touch her smooth black long hair, and smilingly said, I'm going to establish a sect and rename it. Do you have any objections? Yan'er is masters, said Gu Yan'er straightforwardly. Whatever you say, Master. When I established the Everlasting Feast Hall to train a group of talents, the main purpose was to have them help me find you, Master. Now that I've found you, they are meaningless to me. They are our people, Yan'er. Tan Xiu shook his head. I know what you're thinking, but you must remember that since you've raised them and taught them your skills, you must treat them as your family. You know who I used to be, but I neglected one point, and that is strength in numbers. If those old men who followed me to the peak were all by my side, those bastards wouldn't have had the chance to plot against me. A thoughtful look flashed in Gu Yen'er's eyes. She silently nodded and said, "I'll remember your words, master." Tan Xiu looked up at the starry sky. His deep eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the clouds and space to see the magnificent scene in the vast immortal world. He could see his enemies constantly making progress. However, he wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid at all. He was once a supreme in the immortal world, and his biggest advantage was the accumulation of tens of thousands of years, as well as the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, a top-notch cultivation art that was comparable to the cultivation art of demon gods. In the past, it had taken him 8,000 years to become the supreme exalt of the immortal world. Now that he had started over, he was confident that he would be able to shorten the time needed. Chapter 987. The laws in the immortal world were exceptionally cruel, and the survival of the fittest was the rule without exception. If one wanted to stand out in the immortal world, they could only kill their way out of this world, unless they had a strong background. Tang Xiu was glad that he didn't have nothing after starting all over again. Although he couldn't contact his subordinates in the past and couldn't expose the fact that he was still alive, he still had Gu Yen'er as his disciple. She was injured and her cultivation had fallen to the point where she had just become an immortal, but once she returned to the immortal world in the future, she could quickly restore her strength. It must be noted, before Gu Yen'er came to Earth, her cultivation had reached the terrifying perfected golden immortal stage. Although she was still a bit far from the supremacy stage, she could be regarded as a feudal lord. Even the supremes in the immortal world didn't dare to ignore her existence. "Yen'er, can you refine the nascent soul breakthrough pill now?" Tan Xiu retracted his gaze and looked at Gu Yen'er. "Master, let alone the nascent soul breakthrough pill. I can even refine an immortal pill now." Gu Yen'er hesitated. "It's just that the materials for alchemy on Earth are very scarce. I only know the fallen soul grass, but I don't have any other materials. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to refine the nascent soul breakthrough pill." "You don't need to worry about the materials for alchemy. I'll solve this matter," said Tan Xiu. "I think I must set a rule. When we go back in the future, the people we take away must have some strength. If they haven't broken through to the spirit formation stage by then, they won't be qualified to leave with us." "Isn't this limit too low, master?" Gu Yen'er hesitated. Spirit formation stage cultivators are everywhere in the immortal world, and they can only be regarded as weak. If you ask me, those who haven't reached the Great Ascension stage are not qualified to go with us. Yen'er, you should be very clear about the cultivation conditions on Earth. Tan Xiu shook his head. It's very difficult to break through to the Great Ascension stage in such a harsh environment where resources are scarce. Even I don't dare to say that I can be comparable to a Great Ascension stage expert. The soul formation stage was enough. Once we bring them to the immortal world and find a paradise, I believe that after gathering a large amount of cultivation resources, their potential will be completely stimulated. At that time, their cultivation will probably advance by leaps and bounds. In 100 years at most, they might be able to break through to the immortal realm. Gu Yen'er thought about it and felt that Tan Xiu's words made sense, so she nodded and said, "Don't worry, master. As long as I have enough alchemy ingredients, I can refine a large number of breaking nascent soul pills." With the assistance of the nascent breaking pill, I believe it won't be long before we have a large number of nascent soul experts. Countryside horse farm. Dozens of strong men had already gathered outside the European-style villa. Guofugue, with a murderous look on his face, walked out of the villa with 2 strong men following him. He indifferently looked at his men in front of him and said in a deep voice, "You should have heard of the everlasting feast hall. But now this restaurant is actually harboring the murderer of our brothers, so the owner of this restaurant and all of them should die. Follow me. We'll force them to hand over the murderer and give us an explanation. Otherwise, we'll teach them a lesson." Teach them a lesson. The dozens of strong men brandished their fists and roared aggressively. Guofugue nodded in satisfaction and strode toward the row of cars not far away. After quickly boarding the car, the convoy then headed toward the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. In the car, Guofugue was sitting in the back seat with his eyes gleaming with lust. He had been to the everlasting feast hall several times. The food there was indeed good, and it was a good place for leisure and entertainment. But what he missed the most was the little boss of the everlasting feast hall, the fairy-like Gu Xiaoxue. Guofugue had seen a lot of beauties in his life, but those who could reach the level of Gu Xiaoxue were few and far between. In the entire Jingmen Island, there were only two people who had such a stunning appearance. One was Gu Xiaoxue, and the other was the eldest daughter of the Ouyang family, Ouyang Lulu. He didn't dare to covet Ouyang Lulu, because he was afraid that the Ouyang family would come out in full force to annihilate him. However, Gu Xiaoxue didn't seem to have any background. Except for the number of security guards in the everlasting feast hall, there was nothing to be afraid of. In the parking lot of the everlasting feast hall, Mo was leaning on the side of the car with a cigarette between his fingernails, silently thinking about something. He knew that the everlasting feast hall had a lot of secrets, and the biggest one should be the boss, Gu Yan. Although Gu Yan raised him and taught him some skills, he didn't know much about Gu Yan, her origin, her age. How powerful was she? Mo knew nothing about it. He only knew that in his eyes, Gu Yan was his boss, and like his mother, she was the closest person to him. And Tan Xiu was the person he admired the most. He also had absolute loyalty and trust toward Tan Xiu, Light, Dark, and Gu Xiaoxue. All three of them have broken through to the Golden Core stage, and should be the strongest experts in the entire everlasting feast hall. But my cultivation is only at the late stage of foundation establishment. Even if I can be ranked at the forefront of the restaurant's members, it's still far from what I want. The origin of these two bosses is absolutely terrifying, because it's related to the existence of another world. Let alone boss Gu Yan. Or just boss Tan Xiu alone has improved his strength too fast. If I can't break through to the Golden Core stage in a short time, I'm afraid the gap between me and boss Tan Xiu will only get bigger and bigger. So much so that I'll lose the opportunity to serve him in the future. Become stronger. I need to become even stronger. Tang Guang, Tang En, and Gu Xiaoxue. The reason why the three of them have such formidable strength is because they started cultivating earlier. I'm definitely not worse than them in terms of cultivation talent and hard work. Mo clenched his fists tightly with a firm look in his eyes. Suddenly, his expression slightly moved as he looked at a figure dashing lightning fast toward him and asked indifferently, "What's the matter?" "Someone followed you and boss here, but they didn't enter our manor and just wandered around the vicinity," said the person in a deep voice. Mo frowned and coldly said, "Let's go and have a look. They must be experts to be able to follow us here without us noticing." A few minutes later, at the intersection of the highway outside the everlasting feast hall, the scar-faced man, Lu Hao, stooped down and hid in the bushes like a cat, quietly observing the interior of the everlasting feast hall. The binoculars in his hand allowed him to clearly observe a large area inside the everlasting feast hall. Next to him, three thin young men gripped their machetes and vigilantly observed the surroundings. They would be able to detect the slightest movement of the grass in the wind the first time. "How long will it take for boss to arrive, Brother Mouse?" One of the young men leaned toward Lu Hao and asked in a low voice. "He should have set off by now." Lu Hao sneered. "Boss brought a lot of our brothers this time. Even if the everlasting feast hall has a lot of security guards, those spineless shrimps will have no choice but to kneel and beg for mercy when the time comes. Fuck, if it weren't for not alerting them, the four of us would have already rushed in and caught those two guys." Brother Mouse, we're boss's men. Who in the entire Jingmen Island doesn't know the name of our boss, Guofugue? Do you think those security guards of the everlasting feast hall will dare to compete with us? Even if we go in and catch them, I'm afraid they won't even dare to let out a fart. Lu Hao let out a faint smile. He was very satisfied with his current life. As the number one right-hand man of his boss, Guofugue, he was respected by countless people. Though his nickname was Mouse, no one really dared to trample on him like a mouse. All these years he had been eating and drinking well. He had money and women, so it was needless to say how free and unrestrained his life was. "Who is it?" Suddenly, Lu Hao's complexion drastically changed, and a horrified look burst out from his eyes. He was a man who could fight and go all out. He had been practicing Sanda for 20 to 30 years, and even 7 or 8 experienced local ruffians were not his match. But now someone was sneaking up on him, and he didn't even notice it in advance. In an instant, the other 3 young men raised their machetes and quickly came to Lu Hao's side, glaring at the light outside the shade of the tree. Under the streetlight 5 or 6 meters away, Mo was seen with his hands behind his back, followed by 4 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. His killing intent was locked on the 4 of them. You already know the answer, don't you? You followed us here, and even asked who we are? What kind of logic is this? I'd like to ask, where are you from? You even dare to follow us and spy on our Everlasting Feast Hall? Asked Mo lightly. Upon hearing it, Lu Hao's tense body immediately relaxed and a disdainful look flashed in his eyes. He got up and walked out of the dark shade of the tree and sneered. You're really from the Everlasting Feast Hall. Where's the other brat? Why didn't he come with you? Mo shook his head and lightly said, just based on what you said, it's impossible for this matter to be settled peacefully. Tell me, who exactly are you people? Why are you following us? Lu Hao rolled his eyes and observed Mo and the 4 core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. He then shook his head and said, you look tall and strong, but I'm afraid you're just a bunch of wax heads and silver spears. I'm sure you'll know who I am soon. But you'll be out of luck when that time comes. Mo slightly furrowed his brows and said in a deep voice, capture them and bring them inside for interrogation. Whoosh. Whoosh. 2 middle-aged big men instantly appeared in front of the 4 men. Their movements were clean and neat as their palm blades chopped the 4 men's necks, directly knocking them out. Mo rolled his eyes and couldn't help laughing. I thought they were some great experts. Never did I expect that they're just spineless shrimps that can't even withstand a single blow. Bring them inside. Since they dare to follow me and boss here, I'm sure they must have some purpose. Chapter 988. A few minutes later, in the parking lot of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Lu Hao's group of 4 was thrown to the cold concrete floor like dead dogs. A big man kicked them awake. Mo looked at their greatly changed expressions and sneered. You just bragged a while ago, yet you can't even withstand a single blow. Tell me, who the hell are you people? Of course, you can choose not to say anything, but you won't be able to bear the consequences. Lu Hao crawled up from the ground and reached for his waist. His expression changed as the dagger on his waist was nowhere to be found. Mo put his hand behind his back and took out the dagger. He threw it in front of Lu Hao and asked with a faint smile, are you looking for it? This trash won't be a threat to us. Who the hell are you people? Lu Hao angrily shouted. The security guards of a restaurant don't have this kind of strength. Anyhow, there's no harm in telling you. I'm Guofugue's subordinate. You've saved Yang Yan and her brother, which means you're going against our boss. Guofugue? Mo blinked his eyes and a confused look appeared on his face. He had never heard of this name before. Could it be that this person was some great figure? Never heard of him. Lu Hao stared blankly and immediately flew into a rage. He wanted to use his boss's name to shake these guys in front of him. Yet he didn't expect that they would say such a thing. Never heard of him? Was there anyone in Jingmen Island who hadn't heard of his boss's name? You've got guts, brat. Mo snorted coldly. You don't need to worry about my guts. I now understand that the reason you followed us is because of Yang Yan and her brother. What's wrong with them? Tan Xiao came to the parking lot with Gu Xiaoxue and looked surprised after seeing the scene in front of them. Boss. The 4 core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall immediately saluted. We were followed, boss, said Mo. It's them. We were interrogated and found out that they are Guofugue's men, but I've never heard of him. The one who issued the order to kill Yang Yan and her brother is this Guofugue. Tan Xiao stared blankly and said with a strange expression, I've sent someone to warn Guofugue, but I didn't expect him to send someone to follow us here. Interesting. It seems I can call Qi Nan back. Call me. After saying that, Mo walked to the side and called Qi Nan. Lu Hao shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and sneered. Are you the owner of this Everlasting Feast Hall? Humph, a few businessmen who opened a restaurant actually dared to meddle in other people's business and challenge our boss. I think you must be tired of living. Just you wait. Our boss will be here soon. I hope you won't be so scared that you'll kneel and beg for mercy. Noisy. Tan Xiu's slap landed on Lu Hao's face. Several teeth flew out along with blood. His left cheek was already red and swollen. Tan Xiu sneered and said, "Those who clamor in front of me never live long. This is the first time, so I can spare you. If you dare to clamor again, I'll throw your corpse into the sea to feed the fish." Lu Hao covered his face, his eyes bursting with a look of disbelief. He was an expert with rich combat experience. 20 to 30 years of mixed martial arts training was not for nothing. But how could the opponent's speed be so fast? He didn't even see his movements clearly. He only saw a blur before his face was slapped. How was this possible? Tan Xiu took out a cigarette. Just as he put one in the corner of his mouth, Gu Xiaoxue quickly took out a lighter and directly lit it for Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu smiled approvingly. Having his cigarette lit by a beauty was really a good feeling. After looking at Lu Hao, he asked with a smile, "Your boss Guofugue will be here soon? How long will it take for him to arrive?" Lu Hao covered his cheek and glared at Tan Xiu with resentment, saying, "Soon, very soon. Our boss is on the way now. It won't take more than half an hour. If you want to call someone, just call them. You'll regret it when our boss comes with a large number of people." Tan Xiu shook his head and didn't bother to reply to Lu Hao. He jumped on the roof of a car, sat cross-legged, and slowly closed his eyes. In his view, Guofugue was just a clown. Ouyangyan told him about Guofugue when he was in the Paradise Club. He was a guy who didn't walk the right path. If he really dared to bring people here, he would directly deal with him. Suddenly, Tan Xiu's expression moved. The moment he opened his eyes, his mobile appeared in his hand. He waved to Mo Ao and the others and watched them take Lu Hao's group of 4 dozens of meters away. Then, Tan Xiu dialed the 110 police number and said, "I'm looking for your Public Security Bureau chief." "Hello, may I ask who you are?" A sweet voice came from the phone. "Tell your chief that I'm from the security department." "My name is Tan Xiu," said Tan Xiu lightly. "He can call his superior if he doesn't believe me." The other side didn't reply for a long time. When Tan Xiu was a bit impatient, a middle-aged man's voice came over. "Hello, I'm Wang Sun, the Deputy Chief of the Public Security Bureau. You said that you're from the security department. Do you have any evidence?" "I just told you to report to your superior if you don't believe me," said Tan Xiu. "I have something I need you to do. Be quick." Jingmen Island, the Public Security Bureau. Wang Sun's brows were tightly furrowed and hesitation could be seen in his eyes. He didn't know how true this call was, but if he rashly contacted his superior and the other party deliberately made up a lie, it would be a big trouble. At the very least, his superior wouldn't give him a good face. But if what he said was true, then he would be in big trouble. Wang Sun thought for several seconds and then said, "Mr. Tang, right? Please wait for a moment. I'll contact my superior right away. Also, I can also report to you on the phone if you need anything. Tell him that Jingmen Island is too chaotic right now," said Tan Xiu. "There are too many cats and dogs here. I'll help him clean them up tonight, but I still need you to deal with the aftermath." Wang Sun pondered for a moment and said, "All right, please wait a moment." In a high-end residential area only 5 or 6 kilometers away from the Public Security Bureau, Chen Bing was awakened by his mobile phone's ringtone. Not long after he picked up the phone, the sleepiness on his face disappeared without a trace. With a bit of solemnity, he dialed Tan Xiu's cell number. "I'm Xing Bing, the chief of the Public Security Bureau. You said that you're Tan Xiu from the security department?" "That's right. It's me," said Tan Xiu. "Please don't joke around, Mr. Tang. This matter is too big. You should be well aware of the consequences if you're lying," said Xing Bing. "You can contact your superior if you don't believe me. He should be able to get in touch with someone from my department," said Tan Xiu. "Also, you can contact someone from the Special Abilities Bureau. I believe Duan Mulin can also confirm my identity." "Special Abilities Bureau? Duan Mulin?" Xing Bing's expression greatly changed and a horrified look appeared in his eyes. It was impossible for an ordinary chief of the Public Security Bureau to know about Duan Mulin's existence. But Xing Bing was crystal clear about it, because he had once been involved in a major criminal case. It was at that time that he learned about the existence of the Special Abilities Bureau in China, as well as the existence of ability users. The boss of the Special Abilities Bureau was none other than Duan Mulin. There's no need to confirm it, Mr. Tang. Just tell us if you need anything. Our Public Security Bureau will do our best to cooperate with you, said Xingbing respectfully. I'm not supposed to care about the public security issues in Jingmen Island, said Tan Xiao. But someone is now bullying me, and this person is also the leader of Jingmen Island's underground forces. I don't want to keep this scumbag alive. Immediately bring some people to the Everlasting Feast Hall to help me solve the follow-up issues. Xingbing's face turned dark. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would criticize the public security issues in Jingmen Island. He didn't expect that some blind guy would dare to find trouble with him. Despite feeling helpless inside, he still respectfully said, I'll bring some people there right away, Mr. Tang. But can you tell me in advance who the other party is? How many underground forces leaders are there in Jingmen Island, exactly? Asked Tan Xiao coldly. This, Xingbing could only force a wry smile inwardly. As the chief of the Public Security Bureau, he was very clear about the underground forces in Jingmen Island. There were at least a dozen of them. However, although some of the things they did couldn't see the light of day, they didn't do anything that would cause the wrath of the heavens. Even if they did it secretly without leaving any traces. Thus, the Public Security Bureau had no way to deal with them. All right, hurry up and bring some people here, said Tan Xiao. You'll naturally know who it is when you arrive. Having said that, Tan Xiao directly hung up the phone. Xingbing shook his head helplessly. But after thinking about it, he immediately called the city leader and conveyed the situation. When the city leader heard the name Duan Mulin, he immediately decided to personally deal with it. At the Everlasting Feast Hall, Tan Xiao waited quietly for less than half an hour before more than a dozen cars rushed in. The Everlasting Feast Hall's members had received the order in advance, so they didn't stop them. Creak! Along with the sound of the brakes, a strong man with lethal weapons quickly got out of the car. He glared at Tan Xiao and the others like a tiger watching its prey. After getting out of the car, Guofugue saw Lu Hao's group of 4 being restrained. He stared blankly for a moment before he came to Tan Xiao's group with a cold face and asked in a deep voice, Who's the person in charge here? Tan Xiao opened his eyes and observed Guofugue. Then he lightly smiled and said, It seems that fate is really wonderful. You were supposed to be rich and powerful all your life, just like your name. But who would have thought that you would provoke me? That's why your fate has changed. What awaits you now is a prison sentence. It seems that you're the person in charge, brat, said Guofugue disdainfully. I, Guofugue, am not afraid of anything in heaven or earth. No one who can put me in prison has been born yet. Tell me, where did your people hide Yang Yan? Chapter 989. Tan Xiao shook his head and indifferently said, I've already sent them out of the country, so don't waste your efforts. But why do you keep chasing after Yang Yan? Why do you want to kill her? As far as I know, the Huang family should no longer pursue the matter of Zhuo Dequan and Zhuo Qing, right? Guofugue was surprised and asked in a deep voice, You actually know about the Huang and Zhuo families? You, who exactly are you? Haven't you seen it yourself? Tan Xiao chuckled. I'm the Everlasting Feast Hall's owner. Guofugue frowned and shook his head. As far as I know, the Everlasting Feast Hall's owner is Gu Xiaoxue, not you. Where the hell did you come from? What you need to care about now is not me but your own safety, said Tan Xiao. I can tell you responsibly that Yang Yan and her brother have really been sent away by my men. You can find trouble with me if you feel unhappy about it, but I'm sure you'll regret it. Regret? Guofugue sneered. With just you? You think you're so great just because you're the Everlasting Feast Hall's owner? Let me tell you, you're going against me and the Huang family of Fukong by shielding Yang Yan and her brother. The Huang family wants Zhuo Dequan and Zhuo Qing's lives, and I'm going to kill Yang Yan who helped Zhuo Qing escape. You'll die if you don't give us an explanation today. I already told you that the enmity between the Huang and Zhuo Dequan has ended, and the Huang family will no longer pursue the matter of Zhuo Qing, said Tan Xiao. As for Yang Yan, she was just helping her friend. She has nothing to do with this matter. If you know what's good for you, you'll immediately take your men and scram. Don't trouble Zuoqing and Yang Yan ever again. Remember, this is an opportunity. I'm giving you a chance for the sake of the Huang family's head, Huang Jinfu. Otherwise, I won't spare you even if the Huang family's head comes. Guo Fugui looked at Tan Xiao as though he was looking at an idiot and sighed. TSK. Kid. Why do you look so real? Who do you think you are? And he was giving face to Huang Jinfu? He really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He doesn't know how to spell the word death. Finished. He took a few steps back and waved his arm. Suddenly, dozens of strong men with weapons in their hands raised the machetes in their hands. Some of them even took out guns and pistols, aiming the muzzles at Tan Xiao and the others. Tan Xiao sat cross-legged without moving, but his expression turned cold as he said, "Don't kill them, but crippling them is fine. Getting rid of these scum of society can reduce some of the damage done to the good people." Guo Fugui sneered. "You sound like you're telling the truth. Do you think you're a cop? You're even thinking about others. What a joke." Tan Xiao shook his head as he watched Mo's group of 5 rush into the crowd like lightning. They were like tigers entering a flock of sheep with simple and crude attacks. The other party simply had no time to defend and immediately fell to the ground. Several middle-aged men with pistols and guns had their tendons cut by Mo's dagger lightning fast and snatched their guns. 10 seconds passed. Dozens of aggressive and ruthless men were easily knocked down by Mo's group of 5. A thick smell of blood wafted in the air, along with mournful screams. Guo Fugui, who was originally confident in his victory, was now dumbfounded. His heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cave. How is this possible? The men he brought here all had martial arts foundation. The most powerful among them had participated in martial arts competitions and achieved very good results. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and floated down from the roof. He looked at the shocked Guo Fugui and said, "I just gave you a chance, but you wasted it. Even if you mention the Fukang province's Huang family to me, it's useless. Kneel down and hold your head if you don't want to end up like your men." Kneel down? A thick killing intent burst out from Guo Fugui's eyes. He might not be able to cover the sky with one hand in Jingmen Island all these years, but he was not a pushover who could be manipulated by others. How would he be able to mingle in Jingmen Island in the future if he gave in today? Would he still have the face to go out and meet people? Suddenly, Guo Fugui pulled out a pistol from his waist. He stepped back and directly aimed at Tan Xiao, shouting, "Your men are very powerful. They're almost as powerful as the martial arts grandmasters I know. But I want to see if their speed is faster or a bullet. Don't force me. I've won many shooting competitions. It's easy for me to aim at your head." Tan Xiao applauded and smilingly said, "You've got guts. No wonder you can have such a big family business in Jingmen Island. But you seem to have made a mistake. Those men of yours were also holding guns, but what happened to them?" Guo Fugui's face turned pale, but he still shouted, "They were just caught off guard, so they were sneak attacked by your men. I don't want to kill you, brat, but don't force me. Today's matter will be dropped for the time being, but you must give me an explanation for letting Yang Yan go." Tan Xiao shook his head and coldly snorted, "You really have a death wish." Whoosh! Mo's figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared in front of Guo Fugui. His hand grabbed the spearhead lightning fast and punched Guo Fugui's cheek. The man let out a blood-curdling scream as half of his face collapsed, and his body was sent flying to the right. Guo Fugui's body was very sturdy, and his physique was also very sturdy. After landing heavily on the cement floor, he felt like he was going to fall apart. The pain on his body and face, as well as the injuries on his body, were things that he had not experienced in a long time. Tan Xiao shot him an indifferent look and said in a deep voice, "Knock them all out and let him bandage them. I don't want them to die here." Understood. Mo's group of 5 immediately kicked those who fell on the ground and howled in pain. After knocking them out, they quickly took out bandages and bandaged those who were bleeding. A few minutes passed. Along with flashing sirens, more than a dozen police cars came roaring and quickly arrived at the parking lot under the watchful eyes of Tan Xiao and the others. A large number of policemen and armed police officers rushed out of the cars and immediately aimed their guns at Tan Xiu and the others. Li Daoren, as a city leader and the most powerful person in Jingmen Island, couldn't help but suck in a mouthful of cold air when he saw the scene in front of him. Xingbing and Wang Sun, who were next to him, had their eyes wide open, flashing with horror. They often led teams in operations and had fought many lawbreakers, but when had they ever seen such a scene? A total of 40 to 50 people were lying on the ground like dead dogs. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. As for the policemen, they were shocked by the scene in front of them at the moment. Their hands holding the guns were trembling. Li Daoren strode forward and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask which one of you is Mr. Tan Xiu?" "I am," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Hello, Mr. Tang. Please show me your ID." Li Daoren nodded. Tan Xiu directly took out the green book from the Ministry of State Security and handed it to Li Daoren, saying, "You're not bad. You received my call and came here in such a short time. However, I'm still very dissatisfied with the security issues in Jingmen Island. I saved 2 people from these people late at night, and then they came here to retaliate against me. Look at the weapons on the ground. There are even pistols and firearms. These people should be considered as the underworld forces, right?" Li Daoren's pupils suddenly shrunk when he saw the big characters on the green book. He opened it and looked at it a few times before returning it to Tan Xiu and bitterly said, "Mr. Tang, I'm Li Daoren, the secretary of Jingmen Island. I'm really sorry. This is the responsibility of Jingmen Island's leaders. You can rest assured that I'll thoroughly investigate this matter and will absolutely prevent this kind of thing from happening again in the future." As a local official, the most basic requirement is to provide a peaceful and happy environment for the common people. Tan Xiu nodded. "Since these criminals have been subdued by the Everlasting Feast Hall's security guards, then take them all away." Li Daoren immediately nodded and said, "These people have violated the criminal law and are bound to be tried by the law. Thank you very much, Mr. Tang. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid these criminals would have gotten away scot-free." "It's my responsibility, so you don't need to be polite," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "That's right, their leader is Guofugui. I heard that he has quite a big influence in Jingmen Island, and has a lot of shady businesses. I hope you can thoroughly investigate all the bad things he has done when you handle this case." "I'm Xingbing, the City Public Security Bureau Chief, Mr. Tang," said Xingbing immediately. "I'm really sorry about today's incident. You can rest assured that we'll thoroughly investigate Guofugui's background. Aside from today's crime, we'll find out everything else and make him stay in prison forever. Then take them away," Tan Xiu said with a smile. At this time, 2 SUVs came at lightning speed and quickly stopped next to the police cars. Surrounded by a dozen strong men, Ouyang Lei pushed away the policeman who tried to stop him, and came to Tan Xiu and Li Daoren. Then he curiously asked, "What happened? Uncle, how come you're here?" Pointing to Tan Xiu, Li Daoren said, "This is Tan Xiu from the security department, Mr. Tang. We received a call from him and learned that criminals were attacking the Everlasting Feast Hall, so I personally led a team to come here. But you, what are you doing here instead of sleeping in the middle of the night?" "Tan Xiu is actually from the security department?" Ouyang Lei asked with a strange expression. "That's awesome. Uncle, have you not guessed Tan Xiu's identity?" "What identity?" Li Daoren was confused. Cough, cough. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He never dreamed that Li Daoren, whom he had just preached to, turned out to be Ouyang Lei and Ouyang Lulu's uncle. According to seniority, shouldn't he also address him as uncle? Ouyang Lei looked at Li Daoren and then at Tan Xiu, who had a forced smile on his face. Then he suddenly burst into laughter and said, "Uncle, how many Tan Xiu are there in Wuxia? Are there any Tan Xiu relatives of the Ouyang family?" Chapter 990. Li Daoren blinked and suddenly recalled something. With a strange expression, he said, "I remember now. Are you Lulu's?" "That's right. I'm Lulu's boyfriend." Tan Xiu replied with a dry smile. "This, Secretary Li, I didn't know that you're Lulu's uncle, so I spoke a bit. Please don't mind me." Cough, cough. Li Daoren touched his nose, being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. He knew Tan Xiao because of Tan Xiao's reputation as a divine doctor in Chinese medicine, and also because of his niece Ouyang Lulu. What happened here before, as well as Tan Xiao's identity, didn't make him think about it. But now that he knew about it, he recalled that he was reprimanded by a junior. It was really embarrassing. However, Tan Xiao's identity as a member of the security department made him secretly shocked. He said, "You can't be blamed if you don't know. I've been wanting to see Lulu's boyfriend before, but I didn't expect that we would meet under such circumstances tonight. Anyways, why did you come here in the middle of the night? It's the treasure my family got some time ago. I'm going to show it to Tan Xiao," said Ouyang Lei with a smile. "We agreed to meet here more than an hour ago. I didn't expect that such a thing would happen here." Li Daren nodded and said, "All right, I won't ask about the matter between you two. Tan Xiao, since you're Lulu's boyfriend, we're also family. Remember to take Lulu to our home when you have time. Also, remember to bring her to Senior Tang for me." "Do you know my grandpa?" Tan Xiao nodded and curiously asked. "My father used to be Senior Tang's guard." Li Daren nodded and said, "But he was injured a few years ago, so he retired in Jingmen Island. I met Senior Tang with my father more than 20 years ago." Tan Xiao suddenly understood and immediately became closer to Li Daren. He said with a smile, "I'll call you uncle like Lulu. I'll definitely bring her to you if you want me to." Li Daren nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "Lulu is very lucky to find such a young and talented boyfriend like you. You have to be good in the future, or else I, as your uncle, will not agree to it." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Definitely." Li Daren and the police left as quickly as they came. In less than 10 minutes, they had taken Guofugue and the others away, leaving only a pool of blood on the ground and the smell of blood in the air. Because of Tan Xiao's identity, Gu Xiaoxue only said a few words in the police statement. As for Guofugue's fate, it had nothing to do with Tan Xiao. However, Guofugue seemed to have some relationship with the Fukong province's Huang family, so he needed to take some time to visit the Huang family and meet the Huang family's patriarch, Huang Jinfu. Very soon, Tan Xiao and Ouyang Lei were led by Gu Xiaoxue to a spacious private room in the restaurant. As the fragrant tea was served, Gu Xiaoxue personally made tea for the two of them. Only then did she obediently walk to the side and sit down. Ouyang Lei glanced at Gu Xiaoxue and forced a smile. "I wouldn't have the self-control to sit in front of Miss Gu if I didn't have a girlfriend. I've seen a lot of beauties, but I'm afraid only a few in the world can compare with Gu Xiaoxue." "Ouyang Lei, are you saying that Lulu is worse than me?" Gu Xiaoxue said with a faint smile. Ouyang Lei was stunned and immediately let out a hollow laugh. Tan Xiao said, "Brother Lei, don't dawdle. Hurry up and show me the treasure of your Ouyang family. I'm very curious about what it is." Ouyang Lei nodded and picked up the lockbox at his feet. After placing it flat on the coffee table, he went through a program and entered several passwords before opening the lockbox. "This is the treasure of our Ouyang family, Tan Xiao. Those archaeologists, historians, and even many famous domestic collectors can't understand what it is. Take a look. It'll be great if you can recognize it." Tan Xiao's eyes fell on the oval-shaped object in the lockbox. Disbelief was written all over his face. He never dreamed that he would see it again in this life. "How did you get this thing?" Tan Xiao looked up and asked with difficulty. Ouyang Lei's expression moved. He didn't rush to answer Tan Xiao's question and instead asked, "Do you know what it is?" Tan Xiao's expression didn't look good. There was even a bit of haze and pain in his eyes. He replied in a low voice, "I know. No one in this world knows it better than me." Ouyang Lei was aware of Tan Xiao's unusual expression. Although he was eager to figure out what it was, he still said, "A distant uncle of my Ouyang family took some people to an overseas island to capture fierce beasts some time ago, and prepared to use the beast's viscera to make wine. They killed a fierce beast and brought its corpse back. They found it in the fierce beast's body during the dissection process." Inside a fierce beast's body? Tan Xiao slowly closed his eyes. It was the only possibility that this thing had not been oxidized. Otherwise, it would have dissipated after being exposed to the air for a few years. After a while, Tan Xiao opened his eyes. His fingers were a bit trembling as he gently picked up the oval-shaped object and held it in his hand. After calmly stroking it for a long time, he bitterly said, I just said that no one in this world knows what it is better than me. It's because I'm the one who refined it. Ouyang was surprised and asked, You refined it? What do you mean? Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Brother Lei, give it to me. I'm willing to exchange anything your Ouyang family needs for it. What? Ouyang was shocked by Tan Xiu's words and looked awkward. Brother Lei, this thing is refined by me, so it belongs to me, said Tang Xiu. It's a treasure in my hands, but it's useless in the hands of others. There are only 2 people in this world who can open it. Ouyang stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression. Open it? What do you mean? Could it be that this thing was empty? Is there something else inside? Tan Xiu didn't answer him. He bit it and forced out a drop of blood. Ancient characters were engraved with his blood. And then he pressed his finger on the oval-shaped object. Immediately, the ancient characters turned into specks of blood and constantly spread out on the oval-shaped object. Kacha! The object cracked open and a sparkling and translucent white bead appeared in front of Tan Xiu, Ouyang and Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu picked up the egg-sized white bead with a complicated expression and muttered to himself, Our bond will be forever tied. My heart will change yours until the end of our lives. The oath of undying love and undying love in the past seems so ridiculous now. Nothing is more painful than betrayal in both my past and present lives. Buzz! The white bead in Tan Xiu's hand burst out a dazzling light. In just a few seconds, the white light gradually dissipated and a pixie with flapping wings and a staff appeared in front of Tan Xiu. Her big round eyes curiously looked around. When she saw Tang Xiu, she blinked and asked, Who are you, Tang Xiu? Why do I feel that you're very familiar? Where's Master? Where's my master? She hasn't let little Wu out for a long time. Tan Xiu took a deep breath. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he sternly shouted, Shut the hell up! The pixie's body trembled, and a frightened look appeared in her eyes. She flew out of Tan Xiu's palm and quietly floated in the air 5 meters away. She then pouted and said, You scolded little Wu. Little Wu. Little Wu wants to get angry. But why can't little Wu get angry? Who are you? Why does little Wu feel that you're very familiar, but I've never seen you before? I told you to shut the hell up. I'll burn you to ashes with the 9 lotus karmic flame if you dare to utter another word, said Tan Xiu in a cold voice. Ah! The pixie looked horrified and flew to the wall in the distance. She then trembled and flapped her wings. She floated there and didn't dare to utter a word, but her big eyes were wide open. She recalled that there was no one else who could release the 9 lotus karmic flame except for Supremacy Tan Xiu. Master's Mr. Right. No wonder she felt that his aura was very familiar. It turned out that he only changed his appearance. He's Master's Mr. Right. The pixie really wanted to ask where her master was. But looking at the murderous look on Tan Xiu's face, as well as his threat just now, she could only stare at Tan Xiu and didn't dare to utter another word. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and looked at Ouyang saying, Brother Lei, there are some things I can't tell you, so I hope you can forgive me. I have a deep relationship with her master. Even the vessel that contains her was personally refined by me. Give it to me and you can ask for compensation. Ouyang was stunned by the appearance of the pixie. If it weren't for Tan Xiu's words that pulled him back from the shock, he would have been in a daze for a long time. Ouyang gulped down and was somewhat at a loss. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and suddenly said, An immortal artifact refined by a real immortal. An immortal artifact refined by a real immortal has infinite power. It's definitely a divine weapon for cultivators. An immortal artifact? Ouyang looked at the pixie and thought about the immortal artifact. He immediately slapped his thigh and said, I'll make the decision. Deal. Tan Xiu looked at Gu Xiaoxue and said, Remember to take an immortal sword from Ji Qimei and send it to the Ouyangs. Also, teach them the method to control the immortal sword. Gu Xiaoxue was also shocked at the moment. But she was, after all, a cultivator at the golden core stage. So her mental fortitude was much stronger than Ouyang Lei's. She silently nodded and said, I'll ask Elder Ji for the immortal sword when I see her. Tan Xiu looked at the tangled pixie and made a hand seal. Suddenly, a stream of qi wrapped the pixie and pulled her into the oval vessel. The pixie panicked and shouted, "Don't lock Xiaowu. Xiaowu doesn't want to stay inside. Release Xiaowu. Xiaowu wants to see Master. Ooh, Xiaowu misses Master." Chapter 991. Tan Xiu showed no mercy and resolutely closed the oval-shaped container. The pixie's cries could no longer be heard. After putting it into his interspatial ring, Tan Xiu was about to speak when Gu Yan's figure suddenly appeared in front of him. "I can sense the existence of a spiritual object, Master." The white-clothed Gu Yan spoke with a puzzled look on her beautiful face. Tan Xiu nodded without a word and said, "She's the little princess of the Violet Elf clan. I happened to meet her, and bought her from a slave trader after her clan was exterminated. Although I don't know how she came to Earth, one thing is certain. It's definitely related to her." Gu Yan's expression slightly changed. She was very reluctant to hear Tan Xiu mention that woman. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Master, do you want me to exterminate that Violet Elf princess?" "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I still want to use her to verify something." Gu Yan nodded without a word. The moment Ouyang Lei saw Gu Yan, he felt as though he was struck by lightning and froze. He had seen countless beauties, including some of the best ones, but none of them could be compared to Gu Yan in front of him. She was like an aloof goddess, holy and beautiful. Her beauty was simply soul-stirring, making his heartbeat speed up involuntarily. Once upon a time, Ouyang Lei had only heard that a holy and beautiful goddess could only be seen from afar, and should never be blasphemed. He had always been dismissive of this saying, thinking that it was just people exaggerating, and that such a woman simply did not exist in this world. But now he believed it. Ouyang Lei even felt that it was blasphemy for him to stare at her directly. "Future brother-in-law, who is she?" After Ouyang Lei sobered up from his daze, he stammered and asked with a blushing face. Tan Xiu looked at him with a strange expression and said, "She's my apprentice and the founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall." "What?" Ouyang Lei was dumbfounded. The breathtakingly beautiful woman in front of him looked like she was in her 20s. How could she be the founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall? It must be noted that the Everlasting Feast Hall had been established decades ago, and the founder's age was probably no less than 20 or 30 years old. Could it be that the goddess in front of him was already 40 or 50 years old? He didn't see that when he called Tan Xiu. Gu Yan's eyes flashed with a cold light. He also didn't feel that the surrounding temperature had dropped by several degrees. "Future brother-in-law, are you joking with me? If she is your disciple, I can reluctantly accept it. But it was impossible for her to be the founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall. How old was she? How many years has the Everlasting Feast Hall been established?" Ouyang Lei finally stopped stuttering, but his face was full of disbelief. "Shut up." Gu Yan finally couldn't bear it anymore and angrily shouted, "Had it been in the past, I would have extracted your soul and burned it with the 9 underworld demonic flame for 1,000 years just based on the way you addressed me as master. Afterward, I would have destroyed your soul, and made you unable to reincarnate forever." Address? Never once did Ouyang Lei expect that the stunning beauty in front of him would suddenly erupt and speak such vicious words. But was it wrong to address him as such? Tan Xiu was his younger sister's boyfriend. They were not married yet, so shouldn't it be right for him to address him as future brother-in-law? Although Tan Xiu didn't want Ouyang Lei to address him as future brother-in-law, he was, after all, Ouyang Lulu's big brother, and he couldn't embarrass him. Moreover, he had just delivered the purple fairy into his hands, so it could be said that he owed him a favor. Gu Yan walked to Tan Xiu's side and sat down next to him. She skillfully pulled Tan Xiu's arm and said with a bit of dissatisfaction, "Master, Yan doesn't want to be addressed as such. You haven't officially married his younger sister, so he can't just casually claim your relationship. If you don't want to hear him address you as such, I'll seal his mouth." Cough, cough. Tan Xiu coughed a few times and glanced at Ouyang Lei, who subconsciously shrunk his neck and said with a dry smile, "Yaner, Ouyang Lei is Ouyang Lulu's big brother. We're on the same side, so please be polite with your words. Also, Oyanglei, pay attention to your words later. Don't call him future brother-in-law or future brother-in-law. Sometimes, even a title like that will make others feel disgusted. Oyanglei's head nodded like a chicken pecking rice. He hurriedly promised, No, brother Tanxiu. I'll never call you as such again in the future. This Miss Yen, I'm really sorry. I was just joking, please don't mind me. Gu Yan'er's expression changed and said with dissatisfaction. Except for my master, all the people who called me Yen are dead. Remember, my surname is Gu. Oyanglei's heart was tangled. If it weren't for the goddess in front of him being too beautiful, he wouldn't have been able to bear it. Suppressing his depression, he let out a dry smile and said, I understand, Miss Gu Yan'er. Gu Yan'er snorted and turned to look at Tanxiu. Her tone changed again, and with a bit of a coquettish tone, she said, Master, Yan'er has something to tell you, but only you. A feeling of helplessness arose inside Tanxiu's heart. How could he not hear that Gu Yan'er was ordering Oyanglei to leave? With no other choice, he looked at Oyanglei and said with a dry smile, Well, Brother Lei, you can go back first if there's nothing else. At most, in a few days, I will send Xiao Shui to deliver the promised immortal sword to your Ouyang family, and personally hand it over to you. What immortal sword is it, Master? Gu Yan'er asked curiously. The Ouyangs helped me find the Violet Fairy, so I promised to compensate them with an immortal sword, said Tanxiu. Gu Yan'er immediately understood and directly took out a beautifully designed immortal sword from her interspatial ring. She threw it to Oyanglei and said, This is the immortal sword my master promised to give you. Take it and leave quickly. Even if you don't want to rest in the middle of the night, my master still needs to rest. Oyanglei was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He couldn't figure out how a stunning goddess like Gu Yan'er could be so merciless with her words. Just a moment ago, she had tactfully asked him to leave, but now, she was blatantly driving him away. If Tanxiu hadn't asked him to come here, he wouldn't have come to the everlasting feast hall at this time. He stood up. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something very important. He let out a dry smile and said, Miss Gu Yan'er, I still have something to ask Tanxiu. You see? Just say it, said Tanxiu with an expression of being at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. You haven't taught me how to refine an immortal weapon yet. Oyanglei said with an unnatural expression. It's useless for me to take it back. Gu Yan'er didn't wait for Tanxiu to speak. She raised her jade-like hand, and a golden rune entered Oyanglei's sea of consciousness. She then said, This is the method to refine an immortal weapon. I'll directly engrave it in your sea of consciousness. You'll understand it once you go back and read it. Oyanglei's body stiffened and fear crazily grew inside his heart. He did find that a golden rune had suddenly appeared in his sea of consciousness, but this strange situation was far beyond his understanding. Brother Lei Yan'er is right. She has already engraved the method to refine an immortal sword into your sea of consciousness. You can go back and read it. Tanxiu said. Oh, Oyanglei stood up in a daze, took the immortal sword and walked out of the room. He went to the parking lot, and sat in his S-Series Mercedes-Benz. Then, as if awakening from a dream, he broke out in a cold sweat. He ignored his men who asked him where he should go and quickly looked at the golden rune. The golden rune suddenly turned into specks of light and floated in his sea of consciousness. It then disappeared without a trace in just a few seconds. Amazing! It's so amazing! If someone can use this magical method to continuously inject all kinds of knowledge into my sea of consciousness, then I only need to observe it once to fully master it. That would be awesome. How did she do it? Is this the means of a cultivator? If so, I must become a cultivator in the future, and have this kind of ability to turn something rotten into something magical. Oyanglei clenched his fists and fiercely waved them a few times. Then he shouted, Let's go back to the family. Inside the box, Tanxiu looked at Gu Yan'er and asked, You just said that you have something to say. What is it? It was just an excuse to make Oyanglei leave. Gu Yan'er giggled. I've already put away the exquisite pagoda, master. When are we going to Nine Dragons Island? Let's go now then, Tanxiu said. It hasn't been peaceful over there in the past 2 days. Some cultivators have been spotted there. If we don't arrange it in advance and let the Everlasting Feast Hall's members fight those people, we'll suffer a huge loss. Also, the existence of Nine Dragons Island must not be exposed. Hence, I'm going to find a deserted island and arrange a feng shui array there to attract the attention of cultivators all over the world. Just leave this matter to me, Master, Gu Yan'er said with a smile. You're suppressed by the heavenly Tao laws of this world. Tan Xiu shook his head. You can't easily unleash your power, even if you have the power of an immortal. Besides, you haven't fully healed yet, so don't use too much of your power. Just leave it to me. You just need to arrange the exquisite pagoda and recuperate inside. Gu Yan'er thought for a while and nodded. Yan'er will listen to Master's arrangement. Quickly, Tan Xiu, Gu Yan'er and Gu Xiaoxue appeared in the parking lot, while several core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall were already waiting for them. Tan Xiu glanced at them before his eyes fell on Qi Nan and said, Qi Nan, you're staying here to take care of the Everlasting Feast Hall's business. You're the general manager of the restaurant from today onward. I'll send someone to replace you a year later, and then you can go to Nine Dragons Island to cultivate. Qi Nan instinctively wanted to refuse. She wanted to go to Nine Dragons Island right now and fight those cultivators who harassed the island. However, under Tan Xiu's gaze, she could only bite the bullet and nod. It's indeed a bit unfair for you to stay in the country, Tan Xiu said with a smile. But HQ will double the quota of resources you get every year as compensation. Thank you, boss. Qi Nan's depressed mood instantly dissipated after hearing it. Chapter 992. The distance between Jingmen Island and Nine Dragons Island was more than 1,000 miles. It would probably take them a day or two to reach there if they were to travel according to normal speed. But with Gu Yan'er's presence, it only took her a dozen seconds to take Tan Xiu and several members of the Everlasting Feast Hall outside the Nine Dragons Island's grand array. I'm afraid that only you can arrange such a grand array on Earth, Master. Even Jiqimei can't do it better than you now. Gu Yan'er couldn't help but exclaim in admiration with a smile on her face. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and looked at the dumbfounded and shocked core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Then he said, Don't waste time. It's easy for you to enter directly given your strength. Gu Yan'er let out a faint smile. Her figure flashed and she immediately appeared on the square in front of the palace on Nine Dragons Island with everyone. Figures flashed lightning fast, and several experts arrived in front of everyone in just a few breaths. Boss! The experts looked pleasantly surprised and saluted Tan Xiu and Gu Yan'er at the same time. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, Go do your things. Inform On to come see me while you're at it. Understood. Soon after, more than a dozen people dispersed. After receiving the notice, Mo On appeared in front of Tan Xiu, Gu Yan'er, and the others as fast as he could. Especially after seeing Gu Yan'er, an excited look flashed in his eyes as he respectfully saluted. They have just arrived on Nine Dragons Island. Settle them down first, and then gather all the core members in the main hall. I have something important to announce, ordered Tan Xiu. With a solemn expression, Mo On nodded and left with more than a dozen people. He was well aware of his boss, Tan Xiu's character. His boss would never rush everyone if there was nothing important. Ever since a large number of core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall arrived on Nine Dragons Island, his boss had only preached to everyone in the small hall. Master! Gu Yin was like a fluttering butterfly. Her colorful dress fluttered in the wind, and her laughter sounded like silver bells. She rushed over from afar, and then intimately threw herself into Tan Xiu's arms. Tan Xiu picked her up with a smile, and spun her around twice before putting her down. He said with a smile, Baby Inin, greet your eldest senior sister. Gu Yin observed Gu Yan'er a few times and immediately learned the salute posture of the Everlasting Feast Hall's members. She saluted and said, Inin greets senior sister. The corners of Gu Yan'er's mouth curled up. She stuffed a supreme-grade immortal sword into Gu Yin's hand, and several ancient talismans instantly entered Gu Yin's body. He chuckled and said, I've given you the immortal sword and the refinement method. I've also imparted to you the other techniques that I've comprehended in the past. When your cultivation breaks through to the nascent soul stage, you will be able to see the contents of the absolute art. Your physique is very good. It's rare to see it in the immortal world. If you cultivate properly, your future achievements will be limitless. Guyin firmly nodded and said, Senior sister, I'll definitely cultivate diligently and protect you and master in the future. Pfft. Guyen covered her mouth and chuckled as she intimately stroked her soft black hair. Shortly after, Tan Xiu introduced Mu Qingping to Guyen. Guyen had experienced a lot in the immortal world, so she naturally knew what it meant to be her master's housekeeper. It meant that Mu Qingping was the person her master trusted the most. Furthermore, she was Guyen's mother, so she was very polite to Mu Qingping, which made Mu Qingping feel flattered. 2 hours later, apart from a dozen core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall, who were carrying out missions around the world, everyone else had rushed to the Great Hall in the central area of Nine Dragons Island. The Great Hall, which could accommodate 100,000 people, only had 100 or 200 people present, making it look particularly empty. With his hands behind his back, Tan Xiu stood straight on the podium at the northern end of the hall. On his left stood Guyen, while on his right stood Mu Qingping. His eyes lingered on more than 100 core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Everyone is here, boss. Mo On shot lightning fast from the outside of the hall's entrance, and came before Tan Xiu and respectfully reported. Tan Xiu nodded and followed Mo On back to the neat queue below. Then he said in a deep voice, Today is the day when all the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall have arrived. Even my disciple, Guyen, has arrived. After getting along with each other for 2 years, I believe everyone is already clear about this Tan Xiu's character and temperament, as well as my conduct. Today is the day the Everlasting Feast Hall will be disbanded, and the day a new sect will be established. Now I can responsibly ask all of you, who is dissatisfied with me. You can quit now. But if all of you choose to stay, you will need to be loyal in the future. You will need to fight, and you will need to be strong and strong. Who wants to quit? The 100 to 200 people in the entire hall looked at Tan Xiu with solemn expressions. No one spoke. With a firm and fanatical look on their faces, they raised their fists and heavily pounded their left chests. All of you are very good, said Tan Xiu with satisfaction. I need you to follow me in the future. I need you to fight side by side with me, fighting against hundreds of millions of enemies and races. You will follow me, stepping on mountains of corpses and bathing in seas of blood. We will kill our way into the higher planes of the immortal world, demon world, spirit world, Buddha world, ghost world, and countless mysterious and unpredictable small worlds. As long as you can live and follow my footsteps, some of you may follow me into the higher planes of the God world, which is higher than the immortal world, demon world, and so on. Immortals are existences you once looked up to, while gods are existences I once looked up to. If you follow me, you must be prepared to kill immortals and gods. If you die, perhaps your souls will scatter and vanish forever in the myriad worlds. But if you live, you will become existences that countless races look up to. The Everlasting Feast Hall was once a small force that Yen'er temporarily established to find me. From now on, the Everlasting Feast Hall is just a restaurant that does business in China and makes money to buy resources. But we need a sect, a more solid collective. Tang Sect. From now on, our sect will be called the Tang Sect. And I will be the first sect master of the Tang Sect. As Tan Xiu spoke up to there, his face turned extremely solemn. He looked at the excited members and secretly felt satisfied. He could feel everyone's respect and worship for him. He could feel that they loved this collective, whether it was the Everlasting Feast Hall or the Tang Sect. Love. Support. This was the foundation of a sect. A single tree could hardly make a forest. Only with everyone's approval and support could the entire sect develop and become more and more powerful in the future. Tang Sect. Tang Sect. Tang Sect. Like roaring waves, the sound waves seemed to break through the tens of meters high roof and soared straight into the sky, shocking the entire world. At the same time, the bright sun in the sky suddenly turned dim. In just half a minute, Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. An ancient aura that had experienced the vicissitudes of life appeared over Nine Dragons Island. A huge pressure fell from the sky and instantly caused the island's protective array to shake and crumble, as though it would break at any time. Standing next to Tanxiu, Gu Yan'er wore a cold expression. Her figure instantly disappeared and reappeared hundreds of meters high in the sky the next moment. A long sword tore the sky and released a terrifying power. In a flash, the entire world seemed to freeze. Break. A hazy phantom separated from Gu Yan'er's body and expanded thousands of times in a flash. It was like a giant that could support the sky as the sword beam smashed the dark clouds and thunder. An invisible net hidden in the dark clouds and thunder was torn apart by the 10,000 feet long sword formed by the phantom. The clouds rolled back and the thunder and lightning dissipated. When the world regained its clarity, Gu Yan'er crazily coughed up a mouthful of blood. With a crazy wildness, she threw her head back and roared with laughter a few times before her body fell to the ground. Tanxiu and the 200 new members of Tang's sect rushed out of the hall. Although they didn't see what Gu Yan'er just did, they could guess what happened. Yan'er. Tanxiu was both anxious and angry. He never dreamed that the establishment of Tang's sect would trigger a worldly phenomenon that was detected by the heavenly Tao laws of this world, thus resulting in the heavenly Tao's wrath. Never did he expect that Gu Yan'er would be so reckless as to directly rush up and break the heavenly Tao's might. A cannonball-like figure instantly appeared 100 meters high in the sky and held Gu Yan'er in his arms. Tanxiu looked at her blood-stained lips, yet a bright smile appeared on her face. He felt distressed and cursed. Do you want to die? You still have serious injuries that haven't healed yet. Damn girl, use your brain when you do things in the future. Even if the heavenly Tao laws punish you and you receive the heavenly Tao's lightning baptism, you won't be able to break my island's protective array and affect everyone on Nine Dragons Island. Gu Yan'er coughed a few times and rubbed her delicate face on Tanxiu's chest. Then she weakly said, You can't be bullied even by the heavenly Tao laws, master. Tang's sect is the first sect you've established and also the family you're going to pour your heart and soul into. Yan'er will protect master and the Tang sect even if I have to die. Tanxiu's heart throbbed. He looked at the bright smile on Gu Yan'er's face and didn't reprimand her again. He gently kissed her forehead and murmured, I, Tanxiu, have done many right things in my life, but the most right thing I did was to raise you and accept you as my disciple. Gu Yan'er's eyes rippled with happiness and a smile, as though a spring ripple was surging in her eyes. She grabbed Tanxiu's arm and murmured, I'll always be your disciple and your child, but I'm not satisfied. I still want to be your woman, generation after generation. Even if the universe is destroyed, even if the immortal world and the gods' world are on the verge of destruction, Yan'er will never want to be separated from master again. Tanxiu didn't speak again, but the strength he used to hold Gu Yan'er was much tighter than before. Whether she was his disciple, his child, or his wife, he was very clear about one thing. The Gu Yan'er in his arms had taken root in his heart and pierced straight into the deepest part of his soul. It would be very difficult to touch her again. Once upon a time, there were two women who had taken root in Tanxiu's heart. One was his mother, Su Lingyun, who haunted him even though he had been in the immortal world for thousands of years. The other was his beloved wife, Xue Qingcheng, who had hurt his soul. And now, there was another figure in his heart, Gu Yan'er in his arms. Chapter 993. After the establishment of the Tang sect, the disciples received a lot of cultivation resources from Ji Qimei. Tanxiu also gave the refined magic swords to the disciples who didn't have immortal swords. Since Gu Yan'er was seriously injured, Tanxiu personally placed the exquisite pagoda in the sea area covered by the island's protective array and let Gu Yan'er recuperate. Back at the venue, Tanxiu announced in a deep voice, I now announce that the Tang sect has 4 major divisions, which is also the usual development method of traditional cultivation sections. They are the God Slaughter Temple, the Logistics Pavilion, the Intelligence Pavilion, and the Assassination Hall. Mo Ao will take over as the Slaughter Temple's Temple Master and command the Armed Legion. The Slaughter Temple will be the largest armed force of the Tang sect in the future. As it absorbs more and more blood, It will shoulder the mission of expanding the territory in the future, so you must build an iron-blooded legion for me. Ji Qimei will be the logistics pavilion master, and will control all the resources of the entire Tang sect. I'll draw up a resource distribution form later. Ji Qimei, you must provide a steady stream of cultivation resources to all the disciples of the Tang sect to ensure that they won't lack cultivation resources in the future. Jin Shi will be the intelligence pavilion master, and will be responsible for establishing an intelligence department. You must establish an airtight intelligence network throughout the entire Earth within 2 years. I'll have the God Slaughter Temple cooperate with you to eradicate and nibble away at the Dark Wind, the largest intelligence organization in the world. Tang'an will be the assassination hall master, and will select 2 assistants from the entire Tang sect to train a large number of assassins who are good at assassination. You can choose from thousands of seedlings, and I must see the results of your training within 2 years. The appointment of these 4 people proved that they would become the top brass of the Tang sect, and would be able to control a large number of disciples and obtain great authority. The reason why Tan Xiu chose these 4 people was based on his understanding of them, and the field they were good at. Understood. The 4 people appeared in front of Tan Xiu under the watchful eyes of countless people. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction, and handed the 4 tokens he had personally refined to the 4 people. Then he said in a deep voice, "The Tang sect has just been established and will be divided into 4 major divisions for the time being. Each of you will be divided into many combinations in the future. I hope you will be loyal to the Tang sect and me." Loyalty. 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 The 4 of them clenched their right fists and placed them on their left chests as they bowed and shouted. Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction. He waved his hand to dismiss them, and then said in a deep voice, "All of you are the earliest members of my Tang sect, and will be the leading figures of the sect in the future. I hope to see all of you make great contributions. I hope to see all of you become stronger and stronger. There aren't many books that I've written in the library, but there are still more than 200 of them. It includes refining tools, alchemy, formations, taming beasts, body cultivators, soul cultivators, and various other categories. Apart from your own missions, you must find time to go to the library to read and earnestly comprehend. In the future, I'll lead a large number of sect experts to tear open the sky above us and slaughter my way into the vast immortal world that's 1,000,000,000,000 times larger than Earth. For us cultivators, seeking the Tao and becoming an immortal is the most fundamental foundation. But I can't wait that long to kill my way to the immortal world. Perhaps a few years later, or perhaps a decade later, we will have to execute the final plan. If you want to follow me to ascend to a higher plane and obtain a more vast and wonderful stage, your cultivation must break through to the spirit formation stage. But you're still far from it if you want to break through to the spirit formation stage. Hence, I'll give you resources and opportunities, but whether you can grasp them or not will depend on your own efforts." At this moment, all the members of the Tang sect looked shocked. They didn't know about Tan Xiu's final plan before. They only knew that Tan Xiu had a mysterious origin and was extremely talented. He was bound to achieve great things in the future. But they never expected that Tan Xiu's ultimate goal on Earth turned out to be to kill his way to the immortal world. What shocked them the most was that they also had the opportunity to follow Tan Xiu to kill his way to the ethereal nothingness, the immortal world that all cultivators dreamed of ascending to. After a long while, each of them had their own positions and duties. But every member of the Tang sect was as excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. While they felt the pressure, they also felt a deep sense of motivation. It was because Sect Master Tan Xiu had made it very clear that if they wanted to follow him to the immortal world, their cultivation must break through to the spirit formation stage. Moreover, they didn't have much time left. Given their current cultivation, they still had a long way to go to break through to the spirit formation stage. 2 days later, Tan Xiu sat cross-legged on the top of the palace, breathing and cultivating in front of the rising sun. Tan Xiu keenly grasped the purple qi that came from the east, and absorbed it into his body. After such a long period of cultivation, his strength had been steadily improving. But it would take a longer time to cultivate the first layer of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, to the great perfection stage of the star's tyrannical body stage. Stronger. I need to become stronger. Tanshio slowly opened his eyes, but a strong desire was growing crazily in his eyes. Regardless of the era, or even the world, there was an absolute law of survival. That was, the strong were respected, and fists were the ones who spoke. But now, he seemed to be very strong, but he was definitely not invincible. Tanshio knew that there were still some terrifying figures on Earth, such as the nascent soul stage powerhouse of the whole unitary sect. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures flashed from a distance and appeared in front of the palace in just a few breaths. Mo-on stepped on the void and came to Tanshio's front step by step. Then, he respectfully reported, "All the materials have been delivered, Sect Master. Our men have also found 2 ships near the 13th barren island. However, the people on those ships are obviously not from the same group. They had a brief fight and seem to be testing each other's strength." How many groups of people have appeared in the vicinity of the surrounding deserted islands recently? Asked Tanshio. Not counting those 2 groups, there have been 6 groups of people, said Mo-on. Including these 2 groups, it's already the 8th group. Most of them have frictions, but there hasn't been a large-scale fight between them. Also, the Celestial Wizard clan has yet to appear. The Celestial Wizard clan's people are probably planning to be the fisherman who benefits from the fight between the Sandpiper and the Clam. Tanshio sneered. However, Jinshi and his men have dealt a heavy blow to the Celestial Wizard clan. They killed hundreds of their people in just a few days and inflicted heavy losses on them. Coupled with the fact that those assassin organizations have been sniping the Celestial Wizard clan's people for money, the Celestial Wizard clan can only hide like turtles and dare not come out. What should we do now, Sect Master? Asked Mo-on. All the materials have been delivered to the 9th deserted island, so it's time for us to set off, said Tanshio. Let's go. I'll set up the 9th deserted island as a battlefield for us to contend with the invading enemies. Also, you need to do something. Gather all the children who have broken through to the late stage of chi refining. I'm going to give them special training for a few days. Mo-on nodded and said, except for the late stage of chi refining, do we need to gather them to break through to the foundation establishment stage? What did you say? Tanshio was stunned and asked blankly. Mo-on said, foundation establishment stage. Sect Master, since you want to carry out special training for the children at the late stage of chi refining, do you still need special training for those who have broken through to the foundation establishment stage? You mean some of those children have broken through to the foundation establishment stage? Asked Tanshio incredulously. How is that possible? How could any of them have broken through to the foundation establishment stage in such a short time? Indeed. I'm also quite surprised, said Mo-on with a smile. But it's the truth. 9 of them have broken through to the foundation establishment stage, and the most powerful one among them has broken through to the mid-stage of foundation establishment. Tanshio suddenly got up and asked in a deep voice, what's his name? 28, answered Mo-on. What do you mean? Asked Tanshio with a frown. He's called 28, said Mo-on with a forced smile. When he was sent here by Bansho, others called him a little beggar, a wild child, and so on. But he said he's called 28. As for why he gave himself this name, I don't know. Where is he now? Asked Tanshio. He's in the training camp. Due to his special nature, he rarely participates in group training. Most of the time, he stays in his room and cultivates alone, said Mo-on. As for the other 8 children who have broken through to the foundation establishment stage, they are also waiting for my special training, said Tanshio in a deep voice. As for this 28, go find him immediately. I need to see him. Mo-on complied and immediately sprinted toward the training camp. Just as Tanshio appeared on the helipad of 9 Dragons Island, Mo and a thin boy of 7 or 8 years old rushed over like the wind. Sect Master, he's 28. Looking at the thin boy in front of him, Tanshio could tell from his aura that the boy had indeed broken through to the mid-stage of foundation establishment stage. What made Tanshio feel inconceivable was that the boy's aura was very stable. It was obvious that he had stabilized his realm. You're 28? The thin boy had a maturity that ordinary children didn't have. He even looked like an adult as he clenched his fists, placed them on his left chest, and bowed, saying, "Boss, I'm 28. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and observed him for a full minute. Then he nodded with satisfaction and said, "You're very good. You can stand out from thousands of people and be the first to break through to the mid-stage of foundation establishment stage. This is far beyond my expectation. However, I have a question I'd like to know. Why did you name yourself 28? For 3 years, from the age of 4 to 7, I barely had enough to eat and wear warm clothes," said the thin boy. "I saved 28 yuan in total. If I had saved 28 yuan when I was 4, my grandmother and sister wouldn't have starved to death. So, I'm called 28. I'll always remember the number 28. Tan Xiao nodded silently and said, "Stretch out your left hand." Chapter 994. Half a minute later. Tan Xiao checked 28's pulse and figured out his physical condition. What puzzled him was that although 28's physique was good, it was far from being amazing. Yet, in less than a year, he had leaped from a precarious child to a cultivator at the mid-stage of foundation establishment. This speed was way too fast. "Tell me, is there anything special about your usual cultivation?" "There's nothing special about it," said 28. "I just follow the cultivation method taught by the instructor and constantly circulate the true essence inside my body every day. I don't know why my cultivation speed is faster than others." Tan Xiao was even more surprised and asked, "That's it?" "That's it." 28 nodded. Tan Xiao secretly shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed and a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He hurriedly asked, "You just said that you constantly circulate the true essence inside your body every day? Is there no time for you to stop?" "Yeah." 28 nodded. "Isn't cultivation supposed to be like this?" Tan Xiao grabbed 28's wrist again. As his spiritual sense entered his body, Tan Xiao finally found something unusual about him. His meridians were very wide, but what shocked him the most was that 28's meridian wall was somewhat different from that of ordinary people. It was much more flexible, and there were even tiny blood-colored red spots faintly visible on it. Blood scripture? He actually has a blood scripture? Tan Xiao was so shocked by this discovery that he was speechless for a long time. When he was in the immortal world, he once read a record in a hidden ancient book. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, a peerless genius with a blood scripture physique appeared in the immortal world. That genius only took more than 2,000 years to successfully cultivate to the perfected golden immortal stage. It was a pity that he died in the hands of a supreme. Otherwise, he would have been able to break through to the supremacy stage in another 1,000 years with his potential. Even that ancient book recorded that if that peerless genius did not die prematurely, he would have been the most promising one to break through to the godhood stage at that time. And before his eyes, another cultivation genius with a blood scripture physique appeared. What was even more inconceivable was that he actually appeared on Earth. "Boss, 28 didn't understand why Tang Xiao kept grabbing his wrist and didn't loosen his grip, but he didn't feel any malice coming from Tang Xiao. Ever since he was found in the garbage dump a year ago and sent to Shanghai, he had seen his boss, Tan Xiao, in front of him. He didn't understand why Tan Xiao wanted to adopt him and so many other children. But he understood one thing. It was Tan Xiao who gave him food, drink, clothes, and use. Most importantly, Tan Xiao sent people to teach them cultivation techniques, allowing them to possess great power. Therefore, like tens of thousands of other children, he treated Tan Xiao as their boss on the surface, but in his heart, he treated Tan Xiao as his family, or even the closest person to him. Like the other children, he was willing to be loyal to Tan Xiao and give everything to Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao raised his hand to interrupt 28. After releasing his hand, he solemnly asked, 28, I'm going to give you a surname. Do you want it? A surname? 28's eyes lit up and he nodded. I do. If so, then you'll be called Tang 28 from now on, said Tan Xiao. 28 was excited. He knew that some of the children who trained with him were given surnames by the boss, such as Jin, Mu Shui, Hua, and Tuesday. The 5 of them were named Tang Jin, Tang Mu, Tang Shui, Tang Hua, and Tang Tu respectively. Now he also had a surname, which was Tang after his boss's surname. All right. I'm already called Tang 28. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, Tang 28, do you want to be different from others? Do you want to have a higher cultivation and more powerful strength in the future? I do, said Tang 28 aloud. Only by becoming stronger can I have enough to eat, have a place to live, have clothes to wear, and be able to protect you, boss. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. He secretly admired the brainwashing methods of the drill instructors. It only took him a year or so to make these children remember his figure in their hearts. Tang 28. From now on, you'll leave the training camp and be Tan Xiu's shadow. I'll give you the authority to pick 4 companions from the training camp and have them follow you at all times, listening to your commands at all times. Go. I hope you can bring your chosen partners and wait for my return here a few days later. I'll be waiting for you, boss. Tang 28 firmly nodded. Remember, don't call me boss from now on. You must call me sect master, said Tan Xiu. I'll send someone to record your name in the Tang sect's register. You'll also be a new disciple of the Tang sect. Tang sect? Tang 28 silently engraved the name in his heart and nodded. Shortly after, 2 helicopters roared and flew toward the 9th deserted island. After an hour or two of flight, they arrived at the 9th deserted island. At this time, some people were already stationed on the 9th deserted island. The number of people was not big, but there were still more than 20 of them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures flickered lightning fast from the 2 helicopters' hatches and quickly landed on the 9th deserted island. Old Angie and Chen Yan were among the more than 20 people who had been waiting for a long time. Most of them were felons rescued by Tan Xiu from labor camp number 1319, and only a few of them were former peripheral members of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Boss. They were in a neat formation with a somber atmosphere. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival, more than 20 people immediately looked fanatical and shouted loudly. Tan Xiu looked at the people in front of him and was secretly satisfied, especially the nearly 20 felons he had rescued from labor camp number 1319. The current them were as though they had been reborn. Their previous undisciplined personalities were nowhere to be seen, and they exuded the aura of iron-blooded warriors. Greetings, everyone. Tan Xiu glanced at each of them and finally nodded. I haven't seen you for a few months, and you've all grown a lot. What surprises me the most is that each of you has stepped into the threshold of being a cultivator and become experts at the qi refining stage. Tell me, do you regret the choice you made? No, I don't. More than 20 people roared in unison. Very well. Tan Xiu nodded and said, since you don't regret it, then I hope you won't regret it later. We're about to face powerhouses from major forces all over the world. Many of them are powerhouses among powerhouses, even comparable to Golden Core stage powerhouses. You'll be participating in the battle. I want to know, are you afraid? No. More than 20 people roared again. Very well. Tan Xiu nodded and said, since you're not afraid, then seize the time to cultivate and get ready for the battle. If any of you can make great contributions in the upcoming battle, you can join the Tang sect as long as your cultivation breaks through to the foundation establishment stage. I think you've heard the name of the Tang sect in the last 2 days. That's great. I've heard of it. It's an opportunity. More than 20 people looked pleasantly surprised and a fighting flame burned in their eyes. If they wanted to become stronger and go further, they must strive to become disciples of the Tang sect. This was something they had figured out in the last 2 days. As long as they became disciples of the Tang sect, they would be able to obtain more cultivation resources, learn more cultivation secret manuals, and master more abilities. This was an opportunity. It was just like a carp leaping over the dragon gate. As long as they could get a lot of contributions and break through to the foundation establishment stage, it was tantamount to success. I still have some things to deal with, so you can go, said Tan Xiu. Shortly after, Tan Xiu spent a lot of materials to cover the entire 9th barren island. In fact, he even set up an illusory formation inside the island's protective formation. Anyone who could break the outer layer of the island's protective array would see the illusion array. Once they entered it, it would be equivalent to entering an illusion. The ninth barren island. It was the place that replaced the Nine Dragons Island, and was about to be exposed to the eyes of the major forces. It was also the main battlefield. After arranging everything, Tanshio didn't hurry to leave. Instead, he issued an order for a large number of peripheral members to come and participate in the upcoming battle. What's the date today on? Standing on the coastline of the ninth barren island, Tanshio suddenly asked. Today is the 4th of September, Sect Master, answered Mo on. The 4th of September? Tanshio stared blankly for a moment before a wry smile appeared on his face. On this date, Shanghai University had already started its semester, and he skipped classes at the beginning of his sophomore year. I gotta go back as soon as possible. Tanshio recalled the violet fairy in his interspatial ring and Han Qinggu. He also needed to use the violet fairy to verify it, because he was very concerned about the result of the verification. Whoosh! A figure flickered lightning fast from the distant sea, and soon stood in front of Tanshio and Mo on. It was none other than Spectre. I have something to report, boss. What's the matter? Asked Tanshio. A liner has been wandering in the nearby sea recently, said Spectre. To our surprise, there's no one outside the liner. It's as if there's no one on the entire liner. I sneaked to the surface, and found that there were only a dozen crew members on the liner. But when I asked the crew, they said that there's a guest on the liner who rented the ship, and asked them to come here. It's strange that we couldn't find any trace of her, when we searched together. You didn't ask who she is? Asked Tanshio with a frown. I only know that she's a woman in her 20s or 30s, said Spectre with a wry smile. She always wears a black robe and a mask on her face, so the crew members don't know what she looks like. That's right, this woman is proficient in music. She played several musical instruments while drifting on the sea. The music she plays is very beautiful. Proficient in music? Tanshio's expression slightly changed. He suddenly recalled the time when he fought with Death Diana Buddhist master in Bangkok in Tea Country. There was an expert who was proficient in music. She never showed up, and the people he sent to look for her didn't find her either. Could it be? Was the mysterious woman on the liner the same person who helped him in Bangkok in Tea Country? If not, then she might just be a bit mysterious. But if she was, then who was she? How could she appear and disappear so mysteriously, and always appear in the vicinity of his place? Where's that liner now? Asked Tanshio in a deep voice. It's only about 100 nautical miles away from the ninth barren island, said Spectre. But that liner has been sailing aimlessly in the nearby sea for a long time. It's estimated that it's time to return. Take me to that liner, said Tanshio in a deep voice. I want to figure out who's playing tricks on us. Chapter 995. The sky was blue and the wind was gentle. A top-of-the-line military helicopter with a black configuration was overlooking the sea like a goshawk as it flew toward the northeast direction of the ninth barren island. Inside the helicopter, Tanshio was observing the sea below with a pair of binoculars, looking for the lone liner that was drifting alone. A few hours later, when the helicopter's fuel was about to run out, he still couldn't find any trace of the liner, so he had no choice but to return to the ninth barren island. Forget it. Although Tanshio was curious about the mysterious man who was proficient in music, he had a faint feeling that the other party was a friend and not an enemy. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't have helped him in Bangkok in Tea Country. After putting this matter aside for the time being, Tanshio then paid attention to the situation on the ninth deserted island. He had ordered the peripheral members stationed on the other deserted islands in the surroundings to only leave 2 people to hide and observe in the dark, while the rest were to evacuate to the ninth deserted island. Hence, the passenger ships that came from other places transported the members under his command to the ninth deserted island. Cut down trees and build houses. Build this place into a base as soon as possible. After leaving an order, Tanshio handed over the responsibility of managing this place to Mo Au, Jinshi, Tangan and Jiqime. With a super powerhouse like Jiqime around, there wouldn't be any hidden dangers even if a large number of nascent soul stage enemies came, so Tanshio was quite relieved. Half a day later, Tan Xiu returned to Nine Dragons Island. Just as the helicopter landed, he saw Tang 28 and the other 4 boys sitting cross-legged on the shore. All of them were about 8 years old. Aside from Tang 28, the other 4 boys were very strong and vigorous, destined to become burly men in the future. Grand Master. Gu Xiaoxue came and asked after seeing Tan Xiu. What's your next plan, sir? Are you going to leave Nine Dragons Island to command the battle on the 9th Barren Island? According to the analysis of the current situation, the world's major forces shouldn't be going to war with our people in a short time. Tan Xiu shook his head. It's already September and Demon Capital University has started its semester. I need to report there and verify something while I'm at it. Gu Xiaoxue nodded and said, Miss Zhang also wants to return to China. Will you take her with you? She'll go back with me. Tan Xiu nodded and said, She'll go back with me. After all, she's a modern person and has her own life to continue. I'll bring her to Nine Dragons Island when she can see through the secular world. Yin Er is currently in seclusion to heal, so I won't tell her about my departure. You can tell her after she finishes healing. Perhaps, it won't be long before I return. Gu Xiaoxue said, I'll tell Master. Grandmaster, if you let Mo Ao and Jin Shi take charge of the 9th island, who will go back with you? You need someone to follow you. Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile, Forget it this time. I'll take Tang 28 and the other 4 back. They can help me with some trivial matters. Gu Xiaoxue hesitated and said, Although their strength is not bad and they have already broken through to the foundation establishment stage, they are too young and it is not convenient for them to do many things. Do you want to bring more people? No need. Tan Xiu shook his head. Shortly after, Tan Xiu came to the southeast training ground. 842 Boy Scouts who had broken through to the mid-stage of Qi refining and 128 who had broken through to the late stage of Qi refining had been gathered here. All of them sat cross-legged on the huge training ground, silently cultivating. 2 men and 2 women, 4 Boy Scouts who had broken through to the early stage of foundation establishment, sat cross-legged on 4 square stone platforms that were 1/2 meter high and 2 meters long and wide. Halt your cultivation and stand up. Wolf Head, who wore a black uniform and had a grim expression, immediately shouted upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival. His voice was as loud as a great bell that spread throughout the training ground. The 974 Boy Scouts who had been gathered here instantly opened their eyes upon hearing the voice. They swiftly got up and stood straight as they looked at Tang Xiu who had just arrived. Boss. All of them had seen Tan Xiu before. Each of them even had a picture of Tan Xiu, the master they needed to be loyal to in this life. Tan Xiu glanced at them and nodded with satisfaction. Then he shouted, You should have heard that the Tang sect has been officially established and its rules and regulations will be more and more perfect. Children like you who were brought to Nine Dragons Island have yet to have the opportunity to join the sect and become official disciples of the Tang sect. All of you are talented children in cultivation and are the future pillars of the Tang sect. But you must prove your worth if you want to pass the test and become a member of the Tang sect. First, you must make great contributions. The greater the contribution, the more likely you are to join the Tang sect in the future. Second, your cultivation must break through to the golden core stage. The disciples of Tang sect need powerhouses, not trash. You can stand out among tens of thousands of Boy Scouts, and even the weakest among you has broken through to the mid-stage of Qi refining. This shows that you are worthy of training. I'll conduct special training for you in the next 3 days. This special training will be very hard, tiring, and even life-threatening. However, all of you must persevere. At this moment, Tan Xiu showed his ruthless side. He knew very well that only by putting pressure on these children would they be able to work harder. Only by putting in more effort in cultivation would they have a greater chance of survival in the future when they have to fight for their lives. The first day, Tan Xiu arranged an illusion array in the training ground. Due to the children's cultivation being too low, the array's power was very weak. As long as they didn't lower their guard and could burst out with the strength of the mid-stage of Qi refining, they could survive inside. The illusion array could make people lose themselves and also temper their minds. The 979 children, including Tang 28, were facing an endless stream of enemies. These enemies were slightly weaker than them, but there were a lot of them. Furthermore, Tanxiu also created children of the same age in the illusion array, so that they could adapt to the fight. However, as they fought, the enemies grew older and older. In the end, the ones they fought were all burly men. An hour later, a round of fighting. An hour later, they recovered their strength with the help of medicinal pills. For a full 12 hours, the 979 children had all experienced 12 battles. Every time, the number of enemies was more than 200. Although Tanxiu said that he would let them fight alone, he was secretly controlling the entire illusion array. Whenever the children were facing death, he would secretly go easy on them, gradually enriching their combat experience. The second day, Tanxiu took everyone away from Nine Dragons Island and went down to withstand the pressure of the seawater. He also set a strict rule that they could only dive to a great depth, which was almost the limit of the children. The third day, Tanxiu fought against the 979 children alone. Whether they were besieging him or fighting him alone, he took them all on. He also gave them pointers on fighting skills, and even taught them spells. After ravaging them, the children kept gaining benefits and making rapid progress. The fourth day, Tanxiu taught them the method to cultivate their spiritual sense, allowing them to comprehend the results of the past few days' training. If they encountered something they didn't understand, he would carefully explain it to them. If they encountered a lack of resources, he would take out a lot of medicinal pills. In the end, he asked all the children to write down their gains in the past few days and share them with others. At last, after 4 days of special training, the children made rapid progress. 36 of them broke through from the middle stage of qi refining to the late stage, and 5 of them broke through to the early stage of foundation establishment. Tanxiu believed that it wouldn't take long for these children to make breakthroughs after these days of special training and the provision of a large number of resources. Some of them could even improve by 1 or 2 levels in a short time. September 10th. Tanxiu then took Zhang Xinya, Tang 28, and his 4 chosen companions to set foot on Wuxia's territory again. Zhang Xinya looked a little excited the moment they came out of the Shanghai airport. Although she was wearing big sunglasses and a mask, Tanxiu could still feel her excitement. "Now that you're back, live a good life." Tanxiu held her hand and said with a smile. Zhang Xinya nodded repeatedly. She seemed to recall something and began to look around as though she was looking for something. Soon, she locked onto a girl who was dressed similarly to her. She was wearing sunglasses, a mask, and a cap. "Here." Zhang Xinya waved and saw the girl coming over. She released Tanxiu's hand and strode forward to greet her. After hugging the girl, she smiled and said, "I told you not to pick me up, but you didn't listen." Zhang Xinya had just seen the scene of Tanxiu and her sister holding hands. She tried to conceal her complicated feelings and pretended to be calm. She smiled and said, "You finally came back from abroad, big sis. Of course I have to pick you up personally. Did brother-in-law bully you these days?" "Brother-in-law." The smile on Zhang Xinya's face faded a bit. She turned to look at Tanxiu and suddenly whispered, "Xinyue, you're not allowed to call Tanxiu brother-in-law in the future." "Huh?" Zhang Xinyue stared blankly and was somewhat at a loss. "I already know what happened between you two. You don't need to explain anything to me. Tanxiu has already told me about it," said Zhang Xinya in a low voice. "Let's talk about it when we get back. In any case, you can just call him Tanxiu in the future." Zhang Xinyue opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. She was a bit angry inwardly. She was angry at Tanxiu for telling this matter to her elder sister, Zhang Xinya. She didn't even know how to face her elder sister at this moment. Zhang Xinya knew her younger sister very well. She told her sister to come back in advance, because she wanted to find an opportunity to let her understand something. She had long guessed that her younger sister would have such a reaction. Chapter 996. Tanxiu's hearing was particularly keen, so he could naturally hear the conversation between Zhang Xinya and Zhang Xinya. However, he really didn't know how to deal with the twin sisters who looked almost identical. especially Zhang Xinyue. After all, that matter had already happened. It was hard for him to ignore it even if he had a big heart. Let's go. Not knowing how to solve it, Tan Xiu didn't feel like entangling himself in this issue. He believed that there would always be a way out when the time came. Zhang Xinya had informed Zhang Xinyue in advance to pick them up, so he believed that she had her own plans. The nanny car. The space was very large. Even though there were only a few seats, it could accommodate Tan Xiu, Zhang Xinya, and Tang 28's 5 children. Zhang Xinyue personally drove the car, and quickly took everyone to the Blue Star Villa complex. Would you like to go inside and have a seat? After Tan Xiu and Tang 28 got off the car, Tan Xiu looked at Zhang Xinya and Zhang Xinyue and asked, "We won't go inside. Take them back to rest early and we'll come again later." Zhang Xinya shook her head and smiled. All right. Tan Xiu complied and watched them get on the car and leave. Then he turned to look at the villa's courtyard gate. After returning to his long-awaited home, Tan Xiu could finally relax completely. He had been very busy with all kinds of things during this period, and his heart was always stretched taut. You can choose your own room on the first floor. Tan Xiu ordered, and then went to the second floor alone. Since the 2 nannies were not there, he went straight to the bathroom on the second floor to take a shower, change into clean clothes, and then walked into the study room. But before he could sit down, he heard a familiar voice coming from the window. "Xiaowan, Auntie's braised pork ribs are absolutely superb. I promise you won't forget it after eating it. As for the crab, Auntie didn't make it well, especially the configuration of the dipping sauce. It's not as good as the dipping sauce provided by those specialized seafood restaurants. I need you to make it later." "Don't worry, Auntie. We'll steam the crab and I'll take care of the dipping sauce." All right. Tan Xiu stood at the window. To his surprise, the 2 women who came back with the basket were his mother, Su Lingyun, and his godsister, Chen Xiaowan. Before he could call out to them, he saw Tang 28's group of 5 darting out of the villa. They pulled out their daggers and coldly intercepted them. Su Lingyun and Chen Xiaowan were dumbfounded. They had just left not long ago. How could there suddenly be so many children in the house? Moreover, these children were all brimming with murderous intent, just like little fiends. 28. Tan Xiu's figure flickered, and in just a few seconds, he appeared outside the door of the villa. With a smile on his face, he continued, "Remember the 5 of you. They're my family, and they'll be the ones you need to protect in the future. Put away your weapons." Tang 28's group of 5 immediately put away their daggers. An excited look appeared on Su Lingyun's face the moment she saw Tan Xiu. She suppressed her confusion and strode toward Tan Xiu. She observed him and said with a distressed expression, "Where have you been this summer, son? Look at you, you've become darker and thinner than before. You must not have been eating and drinking well, and didn't take good care of yourself." "I've been busy with some things abroad recently, Mom," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I just returned to the country. But how come you're in Shanghai? Where's my dad?" "Your dad went to the imperial capital." Su Lingyun chuckled. "Your grandpa's 80th birthday is in a week. He went there ahead of time to prepare. I saw that you haven't returned to Star City since the semester started, so I was worried that something might have happened to you. That's why I came here. Fortunately, Kong Xia told me that you were busy abroad, so I didn't call you. I just stayed here and waited for you to come back. You could have called me." Tan Xiu chuckled. "Who said I didn't call you?" Su Lingyun snappily retorted. "I called you more than a dozen times in the past few days, but I couldn't get through. That's why I guessed that the phone signal abroad must be bad." Ugh. Only then did Tan Xiu recall that he had been training the Boy Scouts in the past few days, and then hurried back to the country without stopping. He didn't even bother to charge his mobile phone when it ran out of battery. Shaking his head, Tan Xiu then looked at Chen Xiaowan and smilingly said, "I haven't seen you for a few months, Sis Xiaowan. You seem to have become more beautiful." "You're such a sweet talker, kid," said Chen Xiaowan with a charming smile. "This big sis will steam some crabs for you later." "Mom, Sis Xiaowan, this is Tang 28. He's an orphan I adopted a year ago and brought along with me this time." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile. They didn't know your and Sis Xiaowan's identities just now, so please don't mind them. Su Lingyun suddenly looked enlightened after hearing it, and said with a bit of blame, "They're still kids, Xiao. How can you let them carry daggers with them? What if they accidentally hurt themselves with such a dangerous thing?" "They're all cultivators, Mom, and their strength is quite good." Tan Xiao chuckled. "Don't worry, they won't have any accidents and they won't hurt themselves. I just came back, so I'm going to school after dinner. It's September 10th after all, and I haven't reported to school yet. It's indeed a few days late." Su Lingyun quickly nodded and said, "You can't neglect your studies no matter how busy you are, kid. I'm going to cook now. You have to hurry to school after dinner and apologize to your teachers." "All right." Tan Xiao nodded with a smile. As Su Lingyun and Chen Xiaowan entered the villa and went straight to the kitchen, Tan Xiao then spoke to Tang 28's group of 5. "Don't easily take out your daggers from now on, and don't easily hurt people. Tang 28, you'll follow me from now on. The 4 of you will stay here and watch the house. Remember, you're all cultivators and you're not allowed to show your strength in front of ordinary people." "Understood." Tang 28's group of 5 hurriedly complied. During the meal, even though Su Lingyun and Chen Xiaowan repeatedly asked Tang 28's group of 5 to eat with them, they stubbornly refused. Only after Su Lingyun and Chen Xiaowan served them did they take their bowls back to their room to eat. Such a situation made Su Lingyun and Chen Xiaowan reprimanded Tan Xiao for a long time. However, Tan Xiao still used the word rules to brush them off. He hurriedly finished his meal and then rushed to Shanghai University. However, as soon as he arrived at the gate of the University of Monster Science and Technology, he saw a few luxury supercars parked near the gate. A few young men dressed in gaudy clothes with arrogant faces were leaning against the luxury supercars, pointing at the girls going in and out of the school and commenting on them. Hedonistic playboys are everywhere. Tan Xiao secretly shook his head. He went straight to the campus gate, and then ran into trouble. "Hey handsome, can you help me? Can I borrow your cell phone?" Several girls wearing famous brands and obviously wearing makeup blocked Tan Xiao's path. The girl in the lead boldly stretched out her hand. "Hey beauties, are you hitting on this handsome guy?" Tan Xiao forced a wry smile. But this method of asking for his cell phone number is a bit outdated. The girl giggled and said, "We have no choice. Suddenly seeing a handsome guy makes us so happy that we can't think of any new tricks. Just give us your cell phone number, handsome. If you have nothing to do later, we'll treat you to dinner." "I have a girlfriend," Tan Xiao said with a smile. The girl was stunned and then said with some disappointment, "It's okay. It's okay even if you have a girlfriend. It's very normal for couples to break up these days. There's no wall that can't be pried open, and there's no boyfriend that can't be snatched in this world. Besides, you're not married yet. It's not immoral for us to pursue a handsome guy we like." Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. He didn't expect that girls nowadays were so bold and thick-skinned. He recalled that when he was in middle school, boys and girls didn't have many contacts. Also, in primary school, there was a line between boys and girls who shared the same desk. Then, Tan Xiao made up a cell phone number and took out his dead cell phone to show them. Then, he smoothly slipped away under their dissatisfied expressions. He arrived at the dormitory. To Tan Xiao's surprise, there was no one in the dormitory. Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong were nowhere to be found. At this time they shouldn't be in class. Even if they went to eat, they should have eaten by now. Wow, what a rare guest. The door of the opposite dormitory was unlatched. After Tan Xiao pushed the door and entered, Zhao Liang, who was listening to music with his headset, suddenly had his eyes lit up. He took off his headset and grinned. "It's just that I came to campus a few days late," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Is there a need to make such a fuss?" "That's right, where are Yu Kai and the others? I just went to the dormitory and saw that they're not there." "You still don't know Big Bro Tang." Zhao Liang grinned. "Yu Kai and the others are now running to the girls' dormitory. I heard that they're helping Hu Qingsong pursue a freshman girl. My guess is that they must be going to the girls' dormitory now." "Is old Hu in heat again?" Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Not only old Hu, even Yu Kai is in heat." Zhao Liang waved his hand. "Speaking of which, There are a lot of beauties among the freshmen this year, and some of them are the best. Although they aren't as beautiful as campus Belmu, the gap is not that big. Don't talk nonsense. I'll go find them, Tan Xiao said with a smile. Zhao Liang hurriedly stopped Tan Xiao and said with a strange smile, Big bro Tang, it's best if you don't go. Else what? Tan Xiao was confused. Else what will old Hu and the others do? Zhao Liang laughed. Your charm index is already at the top of our campus's most handsome guy list. If you go there, old Hu and the others won't be able to pursue the junior sister they like. Instead, it'll be you who will get into a debt of love. Cough cough. Although Tan Xiao didn't want to admit it, he was somewhat in awe of women inwardly. He had enough women now, but he didn't want to provoke other women. Chapter 997. The friendship between classmates was pure and real. It was neither mixed with interests nor intrigue. Despite being exceptionally mature, Tan Xiao still enjoyed the camaraderie as a college classmate. After borrowing Zhao Liang's charger, Tan Xiao dialed Yu Kai's number and learned that they were really at the girls' dormitory. Apart from forcing a wry smile, he didn't know how to express his feelings. Appetite and lust were part of his nature. The ancestors' words were indeed reasonable. Even though it was no longer spring, a man in heat still couldn't control his male hormones. But thinking about it, finding a girlfriend was indeed a good choice. At least he didn't need to trouble himself with the fifth young lady, and he could balance his yin and yang, which was good for his physical and mental health. Zhao Liang, I'll leave first to deal with something. I'll go straight to the classroom in the afternoon. Tan Xiao unplugged his mobile charger. Although it was less than 10% charged, he still walked out of the dormitory. Where are you going, Big Bro Tang? Asked Zhao Liang. I'm going to find Teacher Han, said Tan Xiao. Zhao Liang followed him out of the dormitory and leaned against the door chuckling. Then you better pray for yourself. Teacher Han just came back to campus a few days ago, and she's obviously not in a good mood. Be careful, she'll deal with you severely if you provoke her. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment and frowned. You said she just came back to campus a few days ago? She didn't come to campus a few days ago? Yeah. Zhao Liang nodded. I heard she asked for sick leave, and came back a few days ago with a strange expression on her face. I heard that the dean advised her to rest for a few days, but she refused. A thoughtful look flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. It was absolutely difficult for Han Qinggu to fall sick given her physical fitness. After all, she had become a cultivator and her strength was not weak. But her complexion looked bad, so there was probably only one possibility: she was injured. Who could have injured her? All kinds of thoughts flashed in Tan Xiao's mind. After bidding farewell to Zhao Liang, he left the dormitory. While strolling on the campus forest trail, Tan Xiao dialed Han Qingwu's cell number. Where are you? You're back? Where are you? Han Qingwu was silent for a moment before she slowly said, Cafeteria. Tan Xiao said, I'll wait for you at the school gate. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and walked out of the school. He had two main reasons for returning to Shanghai this time. One was to report back to school, and the other was to test Han Qingwu. Now that he had confirmed that Han Qingwu was the reincarnation of Xue Qingcheng, he still needed to figure out if Han Qingwu had completely recovered her memory. Before he had obtained the Violet Fairy, he had no way of testing it out. But now it was different. The appearance of the Violet Fairy had finally given him away. Ring ring ring, his phone suddenly rang. Tan Xiao looked at the name on the caller ID in surprise, and found that the call was actually from Qin Zhizhong. Zhizhong, what's up? I'm now at the entrance of Shanghai University, master, said Qin Zhizhong respectfully. I went to the Blue Star Villa complex to look for you, but I heard that you came to the campus, so I came over. Is it convenient for you to meet me now? What are you doing in Shanghai? Asked Tan Xiao. I have a very important matter to report to you, master, said Qin Zhizhong. Also, I want to consult you about some things related to cultivation. Wait for me at the campus gate, I'll be there soon, said Tan Xiao. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao continued to walk toward the campus gate. He knew Qin Zhizhong. If Qin Zhizhong didn't have something important, he would never come to Shanghai to find him. Moreover, Qin Zhizhong was, after all, his disciple. Although he was only a registered disciple, it was still necessary for him to give him pointers in cultivation. When Tan Xiu walked out of the campus gate, he found that the luxury supercars parked outside the campus gate had disappeared, and those hedonistic young masters had also dispersed. A black Mercedes-Benz was parked at the campus gate, and Qin Zhizhong was standing in front of the car, waiting for him. Zhizhong. After Tan Xiu walked over, he found that Qin Zhizhong's cultivation had broken through to the foundation establishment stage. Moreover, it was at the late stage of foundation establishment, and he was probably not far from breaking through to the golden core stage. Qin Zhizhong respectfully saluted and said, "Did I disturb you, master?" "It's nothing." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I just came out when you called me. Tell me, what important matter do you have to tell me?" Qin Zhizhong looked around, and found that no one was paying attention to them. Then he said in a low voice, "Master, one of the executives of my company heard that a psychic herb appeared in the depths of Changbai Mountain some time ago, so I secretly took some people to go there after I learned about it from him. In the end, we didn't find the psychic herb, but we found a mysterious cave." "What's inside the cave?" asked Tan Xiu. "We tried everything we could, but we couldn't open the cave's door," said Qin Zhizhong with a forced smile. "But we found several precious ores at the entrance." After saying that, he immediately opened the trunk of the Mercedes-Benz sedan and took out a silver password-locked box. After returning to Tan Xiu, he put the silver password-locked box on the hood of the car and entered the password to open it. Then he said again, "These are the ores, master. I've read a lot of information and finally figured out what kind of ore it is. Blood soul stone is a living person who was dissected and put into the body of the person who didn't die. After being stored in the body for at least 10 years, it was then frozen for hundreds of years or even thousands of years before it finally formed into a blood soul stone. According to the ancient records, blood soul stones have the effect of suppressing the soul." Tan Xiu gently grabbed a piece and carefully observed it. Then he faintly sighed and said, "It's indeed a blood soul stone. I didn't expect that there would be such a thing on Earth." "That's right. Blood soul stones are precious ores and very rare. It's an extremely precious gem for cultivators who can use it." "Do you know how to use it, master?" asked Qin Zhizhong. "Yeah, I do." Tan Xiu nodded. A pleasantly surprised look appeared on Qin Zhizhong's face as he said, "Master, since you regard it as an extremely precious gem, then it means that there's definitely something even better inside the cave we found. I came here this time to report this matter to you." A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he understood what Qin Zhizhong meant. For such a good thing like blood soul stones to be found outside the cave, it was likely that there were even more good things inside. If he could really find some good things that could be helpful to cultivators, then it could be said that he had made a great contribution here. "Zhizhong, you settle down in Shanghai first. I need to handle something. I'll contact you immediately after I'm done with my work, and then we'll go to Changbai Mountain together," said Tan Xiu. "I've already settled down in the Hilton Hotel, master," said Qin Zhizhong respectfully. "I'll send the room number to your mobile phone later." Tan Xiu nodded. When he saw Han Qinggu coming out of the school gate, he said, "I'll go find you after I'm done with my work. You can go back first." "Yes, master," Qin Zhizhong replied and quickly boarded the car to leave. Tan Xiu turned around and looked at Han Qinggu in front of him. After a moment of silence, he said, "There's an ice skating rink nearby. Let's go there and have a chat." "An ice skating rink?" Han Qinggu was silent for a moment. She found that Tan Xiu had already turned around and left. She hesitated for a moment before she followed him. She didn't know why Tan Xiu asked her out, but she had been preparing for it for more than a year. What she prayed for was that the day would come later. It was September, and Shanghai was still hot. Noon was the hottest time of the day. There were no guests skating in the empty ice skating rink. There were only 2 staff members who were eating melon seeds and chatting with each other. "How much does it cost to book the rink?" Tan Xiu came in front of the 2 staff members and directly asked. Upon hearing this, the 2 staff members suddenly became spirited. They looked at Tan Xiu and Han Qinggu, thinking that they were rich young masters who brought women to have fun. One of them immediately said, "It's 3,000 yuan per hour." How long do you want to book the rink? Tan Xiu took out his wallet and took out a stack of 100 yuan bills from it. He handed it over and said, "Here's 5,000 yuan in cash. I'll book the rink for an hour. But I have a request. You can't stay here. We don't want to be disturbed by others." "No problem." The staff member took the money in surprise and quickly left with his colleague. Han Qingwu just looked at Tan Xiu quietly. She knew that Tan Xiu wasn't the kind of person who would waste money casually, even if he was very rich now. He brought her here and took out so much money. There must be a reason for him to do so. And this intention was most likely to be used on him. Bam, bam, bam. Tan Xiu flicked his wrist and 3 silver needles instantly shot out and accurately hit the monitors in 3 directions. At this time, he turned to look at Han Qingwu and indifferently said, "You remember everything?" Han Qingwu shuddered inwardly, yet she pretended to look confused and asked back, "What?" Tan Xiu sneered and walked to the center of the rink. Only then did he stop and said in a deep voice, "You can hide it for a while, but you can't hide it forever. If my guess is correct, you were the one who helped me in Bangkok, right? And the woman who appeared in the Pacific Ocean was also you, wasn't she?" "I don't get what you mean." Han Qingwu shook her head. "Are you deliberately playing the fool?" Tan Xiu sneered. "Tan Xiu, if you have something to say, just spit it out. Don't beat around the bush," said Han Qingwu. "I don't know why you have such a big hostility toward me, but if I've done something wrong to you, just tell me directly now. I'm sure we can make it clear if it's just a misunderstanding." Make it clear? Tan Xiu felt a dull pain inside. He did want Han Qingwu to make it clear, but he had no way to figure out whether Han Qingwu had recovered the memory of her past life or not. Whoosh! An oval-shaped utensil appeared in Tan Xiu's hand out of thin air. Tan Xiu then looked straight at Han Qingwu and indifferently said, "I personally refined this thing and gave it to my beloved. You should have seen it, right?" Chapter 998. An incredulous look flashed in Han Qingwu's eyes. She shook her head and said, "I've never seen it before. I don't know what you're talking about." "Is that so?" Tan Xiu slowly opened the oval container. Along with the release of the milky white light, the violet fairy flapped her cicada-like wings and cheered as she rushed out of the container. Oh, little Wu came out again. Bad guy, little Wu doesn't want to stay in this pocket world anymore. Tan Xiu didn't look at the violet fairy. His pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see through people's hearts were fixedly staring at Han Qingwu's expression. He keenly caught that the moment the violet fairy rushed out of the container, Han Qingwu's pupils suddenly contracted and her body trembled slightly. Sure enough, a cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. His figure instantly appeared in front of the violet fairy and grabbed her lightning fast. He then looked at Han Qingwu again and said, "Since you've never seen this immortal artifact of the plant world, you probably haven't seen this little thing, right? The violet fairy is the last bloodline of the violet fairy clan in the immortal world. She's also the princess of the violet fairy clan." Han Qingwu's fingers subconsciously pinched the corner of her clothes. Her eyes stared at the violet fairy, and the throbbing in her heart became more and more intense. The violet fairy was grabbed by Tan Xiu, and the huge force made her feel very painful. While struggling, she looked at Han Qingwu. When she saw Han Qingwu's appearance, she immediately looked ecstatic and screamed, "Master, Han Qingwu misses you, master. Please save Han Qingwu quickly." Han Qingwu's heart was trembling. She looked at Tan Xiu's fingers that were getting more and more forceful and hurriedly shouted, "Don't hurt her, Tan Xiu." "You haven't answered my question yet." Tan Xiu sneered. "You haven't seen her, have you?" Han Qingwu fell into silence. How should she answer? "Haven't you seen it before?" The strength of Tan Xiu's fingers grew stronger and stronger. Amidst the screams of the purple elf, he slowly said, "She's the last descendant of the purple elf clan and was abandoned by her master, so she's quite pitiful. I felt that killing her was actually a kind of release for her. At the very least, she wouldn't have to endure loneliness and pain anymore. Perhaps after she died, she would be able to see her relatives in the reincarnation cycle. Wait, I seem to remember something. Her relatives should have perished, right? I'd better be a good person to the end and help her to the end. I'll directly destroy her life imprint and let her disappear from this world forever. Han Qingwu's complexion changed. Her eyes flashed with pain as tears rolled down her cheeks. She clenched her fists and her nails dug deep into her flesh. She spurted out a mouthful of blood and stabilized her swaying body a few times. She shook her head and said, "Don't hurt her, Tan Xiao. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything." Tan Xiao loosened his fingers a little and shouted sternly, "Tell me why." Han Qingwu bit her red lips with her white teeth and shot a deep look at the purple elf in Tan Xiao's hand. Despair appeared on her face as she slowly closed her eyes. Time. Seconds and minutes passed by. After more than 10 minutes, she finally opened her eyes. A deathly gray color filled her eyes and her voice sounded a bit hoarse as she spat out, "I can't disobey Master's order." A cold glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he coldly snorted and said, "Zhu Wuxiu really has a good disciple. He has been planning for thousands of years. Even if he has to bury his eldest disciple's happiness and innocence, he still wants to kill me. It's just that I don't know when I became enemies with Shade Demon Zhu Wuxiu." You know that my master is Shade Demon Zhu Wuxiu?" Han Qingwu asked in disbelief. How? How is this possible? If you don't want people to know, then don't do it." Tan Xiao sneered. "But you haven't answered my question yet. Why does Shade Demon Zhu Wuxiu want to target me? My life is his. I've already returned it to him in the immortal world," said Han Qingwu bitterly. "After reincarnating on Earth, I no longer have any master and disciple relationship with him. The time curse he left on me can no longer threaten me. So, I can tell you. But I hope you'll agree to my request after I tell you." "Say it." Murderous intent surged inside Tan Xiao's heart as he coldly said. Han Qingwu gently walked to the front of Tan Xiao. She simply didn't care about the murderous intent coming from Tan Xiao. She pried open Tan Xiao's fingers one by one and took the purple elf in her hand. Then she faintly said, "Promise me first. No matter what request I make, you must do it." "You know me. Why do you insist on making a promise?" Tan Xiao coldly snorted. "I do know you, Tan Xiao," said Han Qingwu. "That's why I want you to make a promise. Don't worry. My request won't harm any of your interests, nor will it make you make a difficult decision. It's absolutely a piece of cake for you now." "I promise you," said Tan Xiao. Han Qingwu shot a deep look at Tan Xiao and slowly said, "Rosefinch Holy Sect, traceless egret, slaughtered tens of thousands of races and proved her Tao as a perfected golden immortal. As a member of the Rosefinch Holy Sect, you should be very clear about what this sentence means, right? Traceless egret? Slaughtered tens of thousands of races?" Tan Xiao's body trembled and countless ripples surged inside his heart. Traceless and Egret were his mother and father in the immortal world. Egret was the daughter of the Rosefinch Holy Sect's sovereign and Traceless was an ordinary disciple of the Rosefinch Holy Sect. As a result, their love for each other caused countless people to oppose them. However, the current sovereign, who was also Tan Xiao's maternal grandfather, was very satisfied with Traceless and treated him like his own son. He nurtured him and eventually made him and his wife step into the golden immortal stage. For the sake of proving their Tao, Traceless and Egret left the Rosefinch Holy Sect and roamed the immortal world, Demon Realm, and Demon Realm for 3,000 years. They slaughtered countless powerful enemies and finally relied on killing to prove their Tao and break through to the perfected golden immortal stage. Tan Xiao stared fixedly at Han Qingwu and asked in a deep voice, "Among the people my parents killed, were there Shade Demon Zhu Wuxiu's relatives?" "More than relatives," said Han Qingwu faintly. "His parents, siblings, and all his childhood friends died in the hands of your parents. For a long time, Zhu Wuxiu carried a deep hatred and constantly broke through to the next realm, becoming stronger and stronger. In order to control time and resurrect his relatives from the river of time, his Tao was time and space. Ever since your parents stepped into the perfected golden immortal stage, they always stayed in the Rosefinch Holy Sect and rarely left for thousands of years. Along the way, he would occasionally leave, but he would quickly return to the Vermilion Bird Holy Sect. Thus, even though Zhu Wushou hadn't given up on the idea of revenge for 10,000 years, he gradually began to shift his hatred to traceless Egret's relatives. Fortunately for you, there were 2 perfected golden immortals protecting you in secret. They only acted when you were in a life and death crisis. Otherwise, they always hid in the dark and protected you as you slowly grew up. However, many of your clansmen died, or went missing without a trace under Zhu Wushou's secret plan. So your Rosefinch holy sect investigated for a long time, but didn't find any clues in the end. Hence, it was left unsettled. As your strength grew stronger and your cultivation broke through to the perfected golden immortal stage, the 2 experts protecting you returned to the Rosefinch holy sect. It was at that time that I became a pawn in Zhu Wushou's scheme. Unfortunately, no matter how much Zhu Wushou calculated, he didn't expect your talent to be so heaven-defying. You actually broke through to the Supreme Being realm before he did. Hence, his plan was stalled until he noticed that your close friends were secretly dissatisfied with you. Tan Xiu's face turned gloomy and he coldly said, "So you waited until I was crossing the tribulation and secretly ambushed me?" A pained look flashed in Han Qingwu's eyes, but she easily concealed it and said, "That's right. Shade Demon Zhu Wushou promised that as long as we joined hands to kill you, he'd lift the curse of time on me and release my relatives." What he promised Great Emperor Danqing and Zhu Yaoqin Demon was to borrow the Time Pagoda for 1,000 years, so that they could cultivate in the accelerated time. The fog that had accumulated in Tan Xiu's heart was finally dispelled by Han Qingwu's words. He was once betrayed by his beloved and close friends, and the heart-wrenching pain made his soul bleed. Wrong love. He was plotted against in the end. If Han Qingwu hadn't poisoned him in advance, it would have been impossible to take his life even if Great Emperor Danqing and Zhu Yaoqin Demon joined hands. The person who hurt him the most was Han Qingwu in front of him. No, it should be Xue Qingqing in front of him. Why didn't you hide? A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he shouted sternly. Han Qingwu released Violet Fairy and let her fly to her shoulder. She bitterly said, "I've repaid what I owed my master. But I haven't repaid what I owe you. You should be very clear about my Han Xue Qingqing's character. Why ask again? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you?" Tan Xiu angrily shouted. "Aren't you afraid that I'll make your soul scatter and never reincarnate?" A gentle look emerged in Han Qingwu's eyes. A gentle smile suddenly appeared on her pale face as she shook her head and said, "I'm not afraid. Do you still remember my request just now?" A divine sword appeared in Tan Xiu's hand out of thin air. He pointed the sword at the sky and sneered. "You want me to spare your life? Dream on." Han Qingwu shook her head and said, "My request is to kill me." "What?" Tan Xiu looked at Han Qingwu incredulously. She had reincarnated and obtained a new life. It was not impossible for her to cultivate to the perfected golden immortal stage again given her former ability. Even if she was given enough time, it wouldn't be a problem for her to break through to the supremacy stage. However, her request turned out to be for him to kill her? Suddenly, Tan Xiu recalled something and asked in a deep voice, "After you plotted against me, Great Emperor Danqing and Zhu Yaoqin Demon wouldn't go so far as to kill you, right? After all, you're Shade Demon Zhu Wushou's disciple, and you've completed the mission he gave you. Is there any point in fussing about this now?" Han Qingwu asked faintly. Chapter 999. Tan Xiu pointed to his heart and said in a deep voice, "I don't want to leave my last question here. Tell me, how did you die? How did you have the chance to leave your true spirit and reincarnate again after your death?" Han Qingwu shook her head and didn't answer Tan Xiu's question. She slowly closed her eyes and gently spread her hands. The scene in the immortal world appeared in her mind. She was dressed in a red dress that was as red as blood and singing. She hugged the corpse of her beloved who was killed by her, dissipated her cultivation and committed suicide. True spirit. Before she dissipated, she discovered that a trace of Tan Xiu's true spirit was not devoured by the river of time. Instead, it tore the space in the heavenly tribulation and entered the primal chaos of nothingness. She then used a forbidden technique to follow the last trace of Tan Xiu's true spirit into the samsara of this world. Do it. At this moment, Han Qinggu became calm and composed. A golden core the size of a ping-pong ball flew out of her body and floated in front of her glabella. Tan Xiu angrily glared at Han Qinggu in front of him. Seeing how she was begging for death, killing intent crazily surged inside his heart. The long sword in his hand was already trembling slightly. His blood-soaked heart was also hurting even more. The dream of grandeur was as beautiful as a painting, but being reborn was like crawling out of hell. Kill, 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 kill. Tan Xiu roared inwardly, but the divine sword he lifted was especially heavy. He struggled and hesitated. He sadly found that he couldn't do it after figuring out the truth of the matter. That's right, he couldn't do it. In the past, Xue Qingqing could make him drink poison and pierce his heart. But he sadly found that he couldn't use the divine sword in his hand to reap the life of his beloved even if he was full of hatred. Roar. A roar similar to the roar of a wild beast came out of Tan Xiu's throat. He was like a god of death. He finally waved the divine sword in his hand and tore open a bloody wound on Han Qingwu's face. Her peerless beauty was destroyed in a single day. One strike. Cut off Tan Xiu's last nostalgia for Xue Qingqing, cut off the past, and turned into clouds and smoke. He couldn't kill her, but he wanted to destroy the face in his dreams. Bleak and sorrowful. The murderous aura on Tan Xiu's body completely dissipated, replaced by a sense of loneliness and vicissitudes that came from the soul. Slowly turning around, he no longer looked at Han Qingwu's current appearance. With his back facing Han Qingwu, he took a few steps forward. His voice had also become a little hoarse. Sunshine Avenue, Lonely Tree Bridge. From now on, you and I don't want to work together anymore. Han Qingwu looked at Tan Xiu's back, her eyes flashing with heartache. Suddenly, she revealed a bright smile. That ghastly wound was dyed red by the rapidly gushing blood, but she did not have any intention of raising her hand to wipe it. If it was in the past, if it was still in the immortal world, even if Tan Xiu did not kill her, she might have taken the initiative to raise her sword and end her life. But now she did not do so. The memories of her past life and this life blended together, causing her character to change a little bit. To live, even if she didn't want to do it, she could still watch him. Even if she hid in a distant corner, even if she was hidden in time and space, she still wanted to watch him from afar. He needed it. Take action. He didn't need it. Watch. At this moment, Han Qingwu already understood that her life in the future only depended on him. Tan Xiu left the skating rink and left in a daze under the strange gazes of the two staff members outside. He didn't go back to the campus, nor did he go back to Blue Star Villa Complex, nor did he go to the Hilton Hotel to find Qin Jizhong. He seemed to have lost his soul as he walked on the bustling streets of Shanghai, wandering aimlessly without any direction. The sun set in the west and night fell. When Tang Xiu sobered up from his muddle-headed state, he found that he was standing at the entrance of the Everlasting Feast Hall's Shanghai branch. 8 stalwart men formed a circle around him, firmly guarding him inside, and preventing anyone from disturbing him. Qi Nan, who was dressed in a red dress and had a worried expression on her face, was staring into his eyes without moving. Disperse. Tang Xiu took a deep breath. As the primal chaos force surged in his meridians, his whole body broke free from the muddle-headedness. The demonic barrier in his heart had vanished after settling the grudge between them. The improvement of his mind made him strangely realize that he had unknowingly completed the first stage of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the star's tyrannical body realm. A nascent soul stage cultivator is enough to kill. Tan Xiu strode forward and entered the Everlasting Feast Hall's entrance. Under countless strange gazes, he went straight to the manager's office on the 2nd floor. Boss! Qi Nan, who followed him inside, wanted to say something but hesitated. The worry in her eyes had yet to fade. Tan Xiu shook his head and sat on the soft leather sofa. He took out a cigarette, lit it, and took a few puffs. Then he slowly said, "Don't worry. I'm fine." Upon hearing it, Qi Nan immediately felt relieved and asked, "Boss, I just came from Jingmen Island this afternoon. I've already handed over the business here to someone else. Is there anything else you want me to do?" "Give me something to eat," said Tan Xiu. "Drink some wine with me while you're at it. I'll arrange it right away." Qi Nan nodded. As Qinan left the office, Tan Xiu no longer thought about Han Qingwu's matter. He had figured out the matter and solved it after returning to Shanghai. It could be considered as a successful step. He didn't want to think about the past anymore. The matter with Xue Qingcheng had come to an end, but the enmity between Great Emperor Danqing and Zhu Yaoqin demon had yet to be resolved. There was also that shade demon Zhu Wuxiu. He must die. The second thing. Tan Xiu recalled the matter with Shanghai University, and suddenly felt a faint headache. If he didn't kill Han Qingwu, she would probably still be a teacher at Shanghai University and his class teacher. Forget it. I'll quit school first. Tan Xiu didn't intend to quit school directly. After all, his mother attached great importance to the university graduation certificate. It was her long-cherished wish for many years, and he couldn't let her fail. After smoking a cigarette, Qinan returned to Tan Xiu's front. She respectfully said, "Boss, I've given the order and the meal will be ready soon. There's something I need to report to you before we eat." "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu. "Kong Xia looked for you a few days ago, but she couldn't get in touch with you, so she called my cell number," said Qinan. "I didn't ask about the specific matter, but judging from her attitude at that time, she seemed to be very anxious." Kong Xia? Only then did Tan Xiu remember that he hadn't contacted Kong Xia for a long time. She should have been busy with the magnificent Tang Corporation's affairs in recent months, especially the internal purchase of Star City's new city, so she didn't take the initiative to contact him. However, it was also possible that she had contacted him, but he often appeared in places without mobile signal, so she couldn't contact him. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Kong Xia's cell number. Shortly after, Kong Xia's urgent voice came from the phone. "Tan Xiu, is that you?" Tan Xiu let out a smile and said, "It's me. I just returned to the country, and am now in Shanghai." "I want to go to Shanghai to see you now," said Kong Xia. "I heard from Qinan that you were looking for me a few days ago. It seems like there's something very urgent." Tan Xiu asked. "What is it?" Tang Xiu asked. "It's Andy. There's something wrong with her body. If you don't have anything urgent, I want to take her to see you." "What happened to Andy?" Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed as he asked in a deep voice. "It seems that there's something wrong with her cultivation," said Kong Xia bitterly. "It's a case of cultivation deviation. In the past few days, she has been in a coma. When she was sent to the hospital for examination, even the experts in the hospital could not figure out her condition." "Wait for me in Star City. I'll rush back to Star City immediately," said Tan Xiu in a deep voice. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu dialed Chen Jizhong's cell number and told him to wait for him at the airport. He didn't stay in the Everlasting Feast Hall for dinner, and was sent to the Blue Star Villa complex by Qinan. After that, he went to find his mother, Su Lingyun. "Mom, I need to go back to Star City immediately. Someone is seriously injured there, and I need to rush back to treat her. Will you continue to stay in Shanghai, or do you want to go back to Star City with me?" Tan Xiu asked. Su Lingyun hurriedly asked, "Who's injured? Do I know him?" Tan Xiu said, "You know her. She's Andy." Su Lingyun quickly said, "What's wrong with Andy? Let's go back to Star City together. My purpose in coming to Shanghai is to find you. Since you're going back to Star City, it's meaningless for me to stay here. Nothing else matters. Andy's injury is the most important thing now." Tan Xiu complied and called Ouyang Lulu. He then used her plane to directly send him and the others to Star City. Just as the group came out of Star City Airport, the driver arranged by Chen Jizhong in advance was already waiting outside with several cars. "Where are we going, master?" asked Chen Jizhong. "I'm going back to Southgate Town." "You take your people back first," said Tan Xiu. "Andy is injured and needs my treatment. I'll find you after I stabilize her condition." "How about I go with you, master?" said Chen Jizhong quickly. "I'm in the medicinal herbs business after all. If you need any medicinal herbs for your treatment, I can immediately arrange it." Tan Xiu thought about it and refused Chen Jizhong's request. If his mother, Su Lingyun, was not there, he wouldn't mind Chen Jizhong following him. But Chen Jizhong was about the same age as his mother, and he called him master, which made his mother very uncomfortable. Go back and wait for me. I'll contact you first if I need anything. I'll listen to you, master. Chen Zhizhong nodded. Southgate Town. Inside the View Building King Villa, Kongxia had brought Andy over. At this moment, she was anxiously pacing back and forth in front of the villa's courtyard. Her eyes kept glancing at the Southgate Town's entrance. Andy's sudden cultivation deviation made her very worried. In her eyes, aside from Tan Xiao, Andy was the closest person to her. Kongxia didn't want to see anything bad happen to her. She didn't want to see an accident that she couldn't accept. Chapter 1000. When Tan Xiao rushed back to Southgate Town, he saw Kongxia's worried and haggard appearance. He didn't bother to comfort her and followed her to the guest room where Andy was in a coma. Don't let anyone disturb me. Tan Xiao ordered and grabbed Andy's wrist. After checking her pulse, he learned that Andy had overdosed on medicinal pills. Her body couldn't bear the huge medicinal efficacy and eventually lost control. Her pulse was now in a mess, and the true essence inside her body was even more chaotic. If it wasn't cleared in time, even if she wouldn't die, she would have to scatter her cultivation to recover. Nonsense, nonsense. Tan Xiao forced a smile and loosened Andy's pulse. He shook his head and sighed. Then, he helped Andy up from the bed and let her sit cross-legged. Then he began to regulate the chaotic true essence in her meridians. Fortunately, Andy's cultivation wasn't high. She was only at the mid-stage of foundation establishment. Otherwise, Tan Xiao wouldn't be able to regulate her body's condition. Time flew by. For 6 hours, Tan Xiao spent a lot of energy to regulate Andy's body. After letting her lie down again, Tan Xiao walked out of the room. How is it? Kongxia, who was anxiously waiting outside, hurriedly asked. Tan Xiao nodded and said, her condition has stabilized. She'll be fine after she wakes up and recuperates on her own. She didn't suffer from cultivation deviation, but the grade of the medicinal pills she took was too high. With her current cultivation, she can't bear such a strong medicinal efficacy. That's why this problem occurred. She endured it? Kongxia's hanging heart finally calmed down. But Tan Xiao's words made her feel strange and speechless. Tan Xiao smiled and put his arm around her shoulder. Then he asked, are you rich recently? Even if you have money, you can't waste medicinal pills like that. She's lucky this time. At least she's alive. But if the medicinal pills she took were of a higher grade, I'm afraid the medicinal efficacy would have caused her body to explode. Kongxia smiled and said, you're indeed rich recently. Haven't you checked your private account? Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment before he shook his head and said, I've been dealing with some matters abroad recently, so I really haven't checked my private account. What was going on? Where did you get so much money? Kongxia was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. Money is just like a number in your eyes now. It's meaningless. Our magnificent Tang Corp's products are simply making a lot of money every day, and the supply can't meet the demand. I've invested all of this income into the construction of the headquarters in Shanghai. It should be enough. But don't forget about the internal purchase problem of the new city. In just a few months, the new city's housing prices have increased by 3 to 4 times compared to the opening price. Half of the properties we bought have already been sold. Tan Xiao asked curiously, I did ask about the internal purchase of the new city property in the early stages, but I didn't have the time to pay attention to it later, so I don't know much about it. How much did our magnificent Tang Corp invest in the property we purchased in the early stage? Kongxia stretched out a finger, and then stretched out 2 fingers. She then giggled and said, guess how much is this? Tan Xiao said in surprise, 12 billion. Kongxia gave him a thumbs up and praised. You're really worthy to be the man I fancy. You're really smart. That's right. The total investment of the magnificent Tang Corp in the early stages is 12 billion yuan. Whether it's the residential buildings or the shops, the total value has reached about 40 billion yuan. Almost all the residential buildings have been sold for a total of 5 billion yuan. I've transferred 15 billion yuan to your private account, while the remaining 3 billion yuan is in the magnificent Tang Corp's public account. The remaining 500 million yuan will be used as dividends. It seems that the real estate business is really profitable. Tan Xiu sighed and said, no wonder most of the tycoons in the country were real estate developers in the early years. How's the progress of the new city's construction? The first phase of the new city's construction has been completed, and some finishing works are being carried out. Most of the second phase has been completed, and it's expected to be completed early next year. Preparations for the third and fourth phases have already begun. Once the second phase is completed, the third and fourth phases can be carried out at the same time. The document issued by the government has stated that the new city's construction will be fully handed over to us while they will provide assistance. Long Hanwen has been looking for you recently, but unfortunately, even I can't find you, so he gave up for the time being. Why is he looking for me? Asked Tan Xiu. You're the one who personally drew all the engineering designs. Kong Xia forced a smile. The reason why the sale is so good, to the point that the rich and famous people from all over the country have come to buy the properties, is all because the architectural design is superb. The new city built is just like a dream city. However, you, a busy man, have only designed the first and second phases. The third and fourth phases haven't been produced yet. Let alone Long Hanwen, even I'm a bit anxious. Could it be that the government has given up all the authority? Tan Xiu frowned and asked. Are they really not willing to get involved? Of course they want to get involved. But this matter is very complicated, said Kong Xia. With Long Hanwen and the other forces dealing with the government, our magnificent Tang Corp will be much more relaxed. How much of the new city's area will be occupied by the first 4 phases? Tan Xiu nodded and asked. 1/5, answered Kong Xia. Cough, cough. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at Kong Xia. Then he helplessly said, the first 4 phases will only occupy 1/5 of the entire new city? Doesn't that mean I still have to draw a lot of architectural designs? Well, the capable have more work. Kong Xia giggled. Besides, we're the ones who have the biggest advantage in this cooperation. You'll have to work hard for the sake of making money. Tan Xiu shook his head helplessly. Fortunately, he didn't need to design all the architectural designs at once. He could only draw one architectural design for the next 2 phases. Otherwise, he would have to put down the things at hand for a while and devote himself to the architectural design drawing. However, although the time was occupied, it didn't consume too much of his good cells. After all, there were countless buildings in the immortal world as a reference. He could even directly copy the suitable ones, so it was very easy to draw the design. At the corner of the corridor, Su Lingyun appeared wearing an apron. Upon seeing Tan Xiu and Kong Xia chatting intimately, a smile immediately appeared on her face as she asked, How's Andy, Xiu? Tan Xiu released Kong Xia and greeted her with a smile. She's fine now. She'll recover after she wakes up and recuperates for a few days. Don't we have a nanny at home, Mom? Why did you cook by yourself? How can I not cook by myself when my son is at home? Su Lingyun smiled. I asked her this afternoon. Xia hasn't eaten for 2 days. Now that Andy is fine, I'm afraid she'll have an appetite again. But now? Anyone can go hungry, but Xia must go hungry. Xia? Tan Xiu looked at Kong Xia with a strange expression. Since when did the relationship between them become so close? Also, what did his mother mean by that? Kong Xia secretly glanced at Tan Xiu as a blush appeared on her cheeks. She quickly came to Su Lingyun's side, skillfully held her arm and smilingly said, I'm not hungry, Auntie. Su Lingyun smiled and said, You're such a thin-skinned child. You'll be the daughter-in-law of the Tang family sooner or later, so how can you not eat? I'm looking forward to having a big fat grandson soon. Ha! Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that his mother would be so clear about his relationship with Kong Xia. He didn't expect that his mother would actually look forward to Kong Xia giving him a big fat grandson. Could it be that the one he was going to marry in the future wasn't Mu Weiniang? Could it be that his mother really agreed to him having many women at the same time? Tan Xiu really couldn't figure out what his mother was thinking. He secretly shook his head and smilingly said, I'm afraid it'll take some time for Andy to wake up. Let's go to eat first. I've been busy all afternoon, so I'm a bit hungry. What delicious food did you cook, Mom? It's all your favorite food, don't worry, Su Lingyun said with a smile. Dinner time. While his mother, Su Lingyun, wasn't paying attention, Tan Xiu quietly whispered to Kong Xia beside him. Since when did you become so close with my mom? She seems to regard you as the daughter-in-law of the Tang family. An arc outlined on the corner of Kong Xia's mouth. With a touch of a smile, she whispered. Auntie often came to the company to look for me in the last few months and often sent me some food. Also, we sometimes invited each other to go shopping together. What's going on? Tan Xiu was puzzled. As a matter of fact, we'll always choose to have a dinner at your restaurant when the company's top executives gather after the new year. About half a year ago, we had a company dinner together, so I drank a few cups of wine and was about to go back to rest. But I happened to bump into Auntie, who was helping to move some things and sprained her left foot. At that time, I didn't think much about it and hurriedly carried her to a nearby Chinese medical center to have an old Chinese doctor treat Auntie. It was also at that time that Auntie and I began to interact more. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and said with a smile, I didn't expect you to be so smart. You flatter your future mother-in-law. Even if there's no way to give you the Tang family's daughter-in-law in the future, Mom will still love you very much. Go away. With a bit of shyness, Tan Xiu hurriedly turned her face to the side. She didn't want to be teased by Tan Xiu again. She knew that she couldn't become Tan Xiu's official daughter-in-law. But her heart was as clear as a mirror. Furthermore, she had warned herself countless times that she didn't need to care about this false reputation. As long as Tan Xiu loved her sincerely, it was enough. Therefore, although she still felt a faint sense of loss when it came from Tan Xiu's mouth, she quickly adjusted her mood. Suddenly, Kong Xia turned her head and asked in a whisper, What's going on with those 5 children? They're very strange. They're just like robots. They do things methodically, but also very old-fashioned. I don't think they're like young children, but more like old men. Chapter 1001. Tan Xiu sighed. They're the most outstanding cultivation geniuses among the Boy Scouts, and they're much more mature compared to their peers. Since ancient times, there's a saying that children of the poor become masters of the household early. They've lost their loved ones since they were young, and growing up is the only way for them to survive under the hardships of life. They're all street children you adopted? Kong Xia was shocked. But I can feel that all 5 of them are at the foundation establishment stage. How long has it been? How old are they? How can they break through to the foundation establishment stage? Especially Tang 28, he's already at the mid-stage of the foundation establishment stage. They're able to stand out among the tens of thousands of Boy Scouts, so they're naturally very talented in cultivation, said Tan Xiu. Coupled with the steady supply of cultivation resources, it's possible for them to break through to the foundation establishment stage. You're getting more and more powerful, Tan Xiu. Kong Xia looked at him with admiration and sighed. I'm forced by the situation to do my best to train more powerhouses. Tan Xiu shook his head. The dangers we'll face in the future are far beyond your imagination. Only by constantly strengthening ourselves and strengthening our forces can we have more chances to survive in the future. Kong Xia, although you're managing the magnificent Tang Corporation, I hope you can spare as much time as possible to cultivate. Only by becoming stronger can you protect the people you want to protect in the future. I'll definitely try my best. Kong Xia nodded. After the meal, Tan Xiu accompanied his mother and Kong Xia for a while before he left Southgate Town with Tang 28 and headed to Chen Jizhong's residence. Inside a classical-style villa, Chen Jizhong sat cross-legged and quietly absorbed the world's spiritual qi. He had stepped on the path of cultivation, but he was too old. His cultivation progress was still very slow despite having a lot of cultivation resources. He was only at the early stage of the foundation establishment stage so far. Master. Suddenly, Chen Jizhong opened his eyes and saw Tan Xiu standing quietly in front of him. He immediately floated up and respectfully saluted. Your cultivation progress is indeed very slow compared to those cultivation geniuses. Tan Xiu nodded. You know the orphans I adopted? You're slightly inferior compared to the most talented children among them, Chen Zhizhong said in shame. This disciple is slow-witted and has disappointed master. Aptitude is important, but age is also important. Tanxiu shook his head. I used to have very few resources, so I couldn't help you much. But it's different now. I've obtained a lot of precious medicinal herbs and some precious alchemy materials. I can help you solve your aptitude problem. However, I'm still lacking a medicinal herb, and I need you to find it for me. Chen Zhizhong stared blankly for a moment before bursting with joy. He hurriedly asked, Master, what other medicinal herbs do you need? Tanxiu said, Dragon bone grass. Chen Zhizhong frowned and said, Master, I've never heard of this name. What is its shape like? Are there any distinctive features? Tanxiu said, the dragon bone grass has a total of 9 shoots, like the shoots of a willow leaf. It was dotted with white dots, which looked a bit like a 5-star pattern. There was a record of dragon bone grass in the Compendium of Materia Medica. Although it was only a few words, it explained its use. You're running a medicinal herb business, and your company has a lot of medicinal herbs and a wide range of channels. Hurry up and find the dragon bone grass. I'll personally refine a marrow cleansing pill for you. Once you take the marrow cleansing pill, your physique will undergo a rebirth. Chen Zhizhong excitedly said, Master, you can rest assured. As long as there's a dragon bone grass in our country, I'll find it as fast as possible no matter how big the price is. Tanxiu nodded and said, You're the only one living here after I came here? Chen Zhizhong nodded and said, My son has been staying in the imperial city to develop his business. I don't have any intention to let him take over the company for the time being. My parents don't want to live in Star City since they're used to living in their hometown, so my wife has been taking care of them in our hometown for the past 2 years, and only comes back occasionally. Tanxiu nodded and said, If that's the case, then I'll refine something here. I'll also guide you in your cultivation. Chen Zhizhong immediately said, I'll arrange a room for you right away. Tanxiu shook his head and said, No need. You just need to clean up the garage. Also, I'll need a few days to refine the weapon. Tell your bodyguards not to disturb me. I'll give the order right away, Master, said Chen Zhizhong immediately. Please tell me at once if you need anything, Master. All right. Tanxiu nodded. In the next few days, Tanxiu accompanied his mother during the day and occasionally went to the company. Every night, he would quietly come to Chen Zhizhong's place. Artifact refining. It was a kind of identity token, but each of the refined tokens also had a protective effect, similar to a protective talisman. However, this token could only be activated once when the owner was in danger. After that, it would lose its protective effect. In just a few days, Tanxiu had refined a total of 10,000 tokens, which he named as the Tang Sect token. It was the proof of identity of a Tang Sect disciple. At the same time, he was still paying attention to the situation on 9 Dragons Island. In recent days, more and more ships appeared near the 9th deserted island. Various forces were frequently active, and some hostile forces even fought in the waters near the 9th deserted island. Although the scale of the fight was not large, dozens of people still fell in the vast sea. A few days later, Tanxiu bid farewell to his mother and followed Chen Zhizhong to Changbai Mountain Range. The Changbai Mountain Range was the birthplace of the Yalu River, Songhua River, and Tumen River. The total area of the area was 1,964 square kilometers, with the core area being 758 square kilometers. The highest peak of the Changbai Mountain Range was the General Peak in North Korea, with an altitude of 2,749 meters. The place Tanxiu went to this time was the highest peak in China, the northeastern peak with an altitude of 2,691 meters. Before coming here, Tanxiu believed that the data recorded in the books were correct, and he also had some understanding of the Changbai Mountain Range through the map. But when he entered the mountain range, he realized that he was gravely mistaken. The terrain of the mountain range was complex and steep. There were quite a few areas that had naturally formed formations. Interesting. Halfway up the main peak, Tanxiu looked at the array in front of him with a smile on his handsome face. He could easily judge that it was not a natural array, But someone had set it up here. After studying it, he had completely comprehended this formation. Is there a problem, master? Chen Jizhong's cultivation had been advancing by leaps and bounds under Tan Xiu's guidance in the past few days. Even his state of mind had improved a lot. Although his cultivation was still at the early stage of foundation establishment, there were faint signs of breaking through to the middle stage of foundation establishment. He hurriedly asked when he saw the smile on his master Tan Xiu's face. There are many arrays in the mountain range, said Tan Xiu. But the naturally formed arrays are very powerful, but they contain less profound mysteries. But the array in front of us is different. It was set up by someone, and it covers a large part of the mountain range. Ordinary people can't enter this array at all, let alone detect the existence of the array. It seems that this Changbai mountain range is much bigger than what we know. Chen Jizhong didn't understand Tan Xiu's words, but he didn't press the matter. The reason why he brought Tan Xiu to Changbai mountain range was because of the cave that he couldn't open. What should we do next, master? Let's bypass this area and go to the cave first, said Tan Xiu. The blood soul is a rare and precious ore, and the amount is quite a lot. I think there are even better things inside the cave. But you must pay attention to your safety since you're too weak. I'll pay attention to my safety, master, said Chen Jizhong. Let's go over this mountain. The cave is in the snow-capped mountain behind it. I took some people to rush there a few days ago and found that it was snowing there, making the mountain road more difficult to walk. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and grabbed Chen Jizhong's shoulder. His figure then soared and crossed the mountain in just half a minute. Behind him, Tang 28 and the 4 companions he had selected followed him at lightning speed. Amazing! Chen Jizhong wasn't impressed by Tan Xiu's ability, but the strength of Tang 28's group of 5. He was already in his 40s or 50s, but his cultivation was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. Yet he found that Tang 28 had broken through to the mid-stage of foundation establishment, and the other 4 children were also at the early stage of foundation establishment. Where is it? Asked Tan Xiu as he trod in the air, letting the wind and snow blow past him. Chen Jizhong observed for a while and pointed to the snow-capped mountain in the distance, saying, "Do you see the valley over there, master? The cave was located halfway up the mountain. It'll only take you half a minute to reach the cave's entrance given your flying speed." Tan Xiu released his spiritual sense continuously and flew in the direction pointed by Chen Jizhong. Soon he easily found the cave's entrance. An array? Tan Xiu's expression suddenly moved the moment his feet touched the ground. 2 thumb-sized blood soul stones were easily sucked over by his spiritual sense, and then he held them in his hand to fiddle with them. Arrays were what he was good at. However, he didn't rush to study the array in front of him, and instead carefully looked around. Blood soul stones. It was an ore that could store the soul of a cultivator, and was a very rare carrier. In addition, blood soul stones could also be used to refine and extract the blood essence inside, which was a very good material for refining elixirs. Similarly, it could also be used to refine artifacts. After a long while, Tan Xiu returned to the cave's entrance with a bit of disappointment. After searching for a while, he only found the 2 blood soul stones, and there were no other good things around. Let's study the array. Tan Xiu sat cross-legged outside the cave's entrance, and carefully studied the array that sealed the cave's entrance. After a short period of study, he figured out the principle of the array, and was confident that he could easily break it. Chapter 1002. In the past, Tan Xiu's attainments in array formations had almost reached the pinnacle. He could even completely envelop a certain star field in the immortal world with an array formation, and unleash tremendous power. Although his spiritual sense was less than 1/10,000th of his peak, it was still a piece of cake for him to crack the array formation in front of him. Let's go inside. Tan Xiu floated up and slashed forward with his finger sword. The air rippled like a net and shattered in the blink of an eye. The fine steel door was easily cut open like tofu and fell to the ground with a loud bang. An excited expression was revealed in Chen Jizhong's eyes. His admiration for Tang Xiu was even more intense. Back then, he and his subordinates had racked their brains and spent a lot of effort, but they still couldn't enter the cave. However, his master had easily broken open the cave door. His strength was simply beyond his imagination. Strange. There's no spiritual energy inside. Tang 28, who followed closely behind Tan Xiu, walked along the cave for more than 10 meters, and then looked incredulous. It must be noted that spiritual energy existed in every corner of the earth. Even in some places where the concentration of spiritual energy was so thin that it was negligible. But here, the concentration of spiritual energy became lower the deeper they went. They couldn't even sense the existence of spiritual energy after walking for more than 10 meters. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and then said, Tang 28, the 5 of you wait outside the cave. Don't come in without my order. Also stand guard outside. If anyone comes, you must block them for me. Understood. Tang 28's group of 5 stopped and turned to walk toward the entrance of the cave. Tan Xiu led Chen Zhizhong to go more than 10 meters inside, and faintly heard a roar coming from the depths. The sound was not like a beast's roar, but more like a human's howl. After walking for 100 meters, Tan Xiu and Chen Zhizhong's eyes lit up. Heavens! How's this possible? Chen Zhizhong exclaimed after seeing the scene in front of him. He couldn't believe his eyes because he never dreamed that the belly of the mountain turned out to be a world. The sky was blue and the clouds were white. The mountain peaks rose and fell one after another. Although there was no sun or moon, there were countless birds and beasts. Towering ancient trees could be seen everywhere. The blooming flowers were even more beautiful, making this place look like a fairyland. Tan Xiu said indifferently, Don't make a fuss. This is just a world constructed inside the array. However, compared to the formation at the entrance of the cave, the formation here is much more interesting. Chen Zhizhong didn't understand array formation, so naturally, he couldn't see through the mystery here. He reached for his dagger and looked around vigilantly. Any movement would alert him. Master, this place is so big. What should we do? Wandering around looking for treasures? With a bit of regret, Tan Xiu said, The area of this pocket world constructed by the array is indeed quite large. Unfortunately, even though there was thin oxygen here, the degree of spirit energy here was practically negligible. Even a golden core realm cultivator would find it difficult to absorb the pitifully scarce spirit energy of the heavens and the earth here. Therefore, I think although there are many flowers and trees here, precious medicinal herbs are very difficult to find. Chen Zhizhong was confused. Why? If plants can grow here, why can't medicinal herbs grow here? Medicinal herbs are also a kind of plant. Medicinal herbs are indeed plants. Tan Xiu shook his head. But plants that can be called medicinal herbs need to absorb the essence of the earth and grow under the nourishment of the world's spirit energy. Only after a long period of accumulation can they have very strong medicinal properties. For example, if a wild ginseng grows here but it has no medicinal effect, do you think it can be regarded as a medicinal herb? Chen Zhizhong instantly understood Tan Xiu's meaning. He shook his head and forced a smile. Nope. The reason why ginseng is regarded as a treasure is because of the medicinal efficacy it contains. Without medicinal efficacy, it's no different from weeds and leaves. Therefore, I'm afraid there are no medicinal herbs in this pocket world, said Tan Xiu. If there are any good things here, I'm afraid it can only be ores. Chen Zhizhong hurriedly said. I think there must be precious ores here, master. After all, there is a blood soul stone outside the cave entrance. I think there must be something better than the blood soul stone inside. Let's look for it, and maybe we'll have an unexpected harvest. Since we're already here, we'll naturally look for it, said Tan Xiu with a smile. The environment of this pocket world was simply picturesque, with birds and beasts everywhere among the mountains and rivers. However, in this paradise that was full of vitality, there was an extremely dangerous place hidden, and there were terrifying fierce beasts hidden. The roar he heard just now had already dissipated, but even Tan Xiu had no choice but to be cautious in this world without much spiritual energy. Consumption. This was the most fatal problem for cultivators in such an environment. Unless they carried a lot of medicinal pills, their strength would plummet once their true essence was consumed excessively, and it would be very difficult for them to survive in a crisis. Fortunately, There were a lot of medicinal pills in Tan Xiu's interspatial ring. Even if his demand was not high, Chen Zhizhong could still take them in case he needed them. I must go to Bangkok again after leaving this place to get more demon stones from the Dark Shaman clan. I can absorb and refine the demon stones I have now for a few years, but I'm afraid I'll be in danger if I'm trapped in this pocket world in the future. Being a cultivator is like rowing a boat against the current. If I don't move forward, I'll fall back. Replenishing the primal chaos force in my body is only one aspect. I also need to make a breakthrough. The price to pay for this breakthrough is to absorb the power of the stars and absorb all kinds of energy. Spiritual energy, on the other hand, is a supplementary energy that requires a lot of demonic power to make up for it. Half a day later, Tang Xiu and Chen Zhizhong had already penetrated deep into the pocket world, but neither of them was able to probe the size of this pocket world. Furthermore, the most disappointing thing for them was that they didn't encounter any danger, nor did they obtain any treasures. We can't keep searching like this, Zhizhong. Given the size of this pocket world, I'm afraid we won't be able to search the entire area even if we search for a few months. I'm afraid we'll have to focus on constructing this pocket world's array. Tan Xiu halted his pace and said with a pondering look in his eyes. Chen Zhizhong hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know anything about arrays, master, so you can study it slowly. I'll search the surroundings. Tan Xiu took out 2 jade bottles from his interspatial ring and gave them to Chen Zhizhong. Then he nodded and said, the more beautiful the environment is, the more hidden dangers there are. Don't be fooled by the scenery here. You must always be on guard and immediately retreat if you encounter any danger. There are 20 medicinal pills in these 2 jade bottles that will be helpful to you. Suddenly, he seemed to recall something and took out the refined Tang sect token from his interspatial ring. He handed it to Chen Zhizhong and said, the Everlasting Feast Hall is now just a real restaurant and no longer a force. All the former core disciples of the Everlasting Feast Hall have now become members of the Tang sect. The Tang sect is a Taoist cultivation sect that I established. Take this Tang sect token as it can prove that you're a disciple of the Tang sect. Chen Zhizhong looked pleasantly surprised. He knew very well what it meant to be a Taoist cultivation sect. In ancient times, a sect was a whole, just like a big family. Now that his master, Tan Xiu, had established the Tang sect, he would be a cultivator with a sect and a foundation. After receiving the Tang sect token, Chen Zhizhong was about to put it away with a solemn expression when he saw Tan Xiu shake his head at him. What's wrong, master? Drip your blood on the Tang sect token. It will be integrated into your body and a token pattern will appear on your finger, Tan Xiu said. Strictly speaking, the Tang sect token was already a celestial artifact, but it only had 2 functions. One was to prove one's identity, and the other was to protect the owner. Once the owner was in a desperate situation, it could help them resist a fatal blow. Remember, unless you don't have enough time to activate it, you can only activate it at the most critical moment of life and death. Chen Zhizhong's expression turned serious and he nodded repeatedly. Then he cut his finger with a dagger and dripped his blood on the Tang sect token. Suddenly, Chen Zhizhong found that his spiritual force had a strange connection with the token in his hand. Whoosh! The Tang sect token suddenly disappeared, and a token pattern appeared on Chen Zhizhong's thumb. It looked like a tattoo, exactly like the Tang sect token. You need your mind to control the Tang sect token, Tan Xiu said. Go. Don't lose your way here, and don't go too far. I can easily use the array to detect the treasures inside as long as I can comprehend the array used to construct this pocket world. Chen Zhizhong nodded and tried to release the Tang sect token, but then took it back. After experimenting several times, he walked toward the distance with a bit of excitement. Tan Xiu casually glanced at it, and then walked to a flat bluestone not far away. After sitting cross-legged, he released his spiritual sense and quickly touched the invisible array. Interesting. After a short period of comprehension, Tan Xiu found that this array was very mysterious. Although he could understand most of the array's structure, he found a small part of it very novel. He had never thought about it in this aspect before. This discovery made him feel like he had just seen a prey, because he realized that the more knowledge he had about arrays, the more he felt that this array was broad and profound, with endless mysteries. In the deep valley, the spring water was emitting white smoke. A group of strange animals, resembling sheep and dogs, with sharp rhinoceros horns on their heads, were drinking around the spring water. Several owl-like animals with lion-sized bodies were squatting on the rocks, looking around. They didn't open their mouths, but strange cooing sounds kept ringing. "What's that?" Chen Zhizhong, who had just arrived here, suddenly staggered. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and reached out to hold a boulder several meters high, else he would have fallen to the ground. His expression was as though he had seen a ghost in broad daylight, full of shock. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.